now. Welcome to Live, Love, and Marry Wizerr special Friday edition and season finale for season 3. Can you all believe? We've been doing this for a year. We started on January 17th, and here we are, December 15th, which happens to be Shanti's birthday, Pastor Alex and Anisha's daughter. So she turned 4 today. So we're happy about that. And we are excited about this episode where we have the couples and we are going to talk to them together. And we have some different topics and different questions. There's so many things we could talk about. And things just kept popping in my head. But we are happy to have you all here to join us here on this Friday evening. Welcome again. And you know our mission is in our name. We want to help you live, love, and marry Wizerr. And that's why we have this program. So we're not going to spend any time on updates or any of that. You can check out Tuesday to find that out. What I will say is that this is the last live episode for the season. We will return on January 16th, but there will be episodes uploaded every Tuesday at 6:15 for you to watch. Some of our afterwise conversations are going to be up there, and those were really good, and then some other things. So at this time, we want to welcome back our couples. Now, you met the husbands the first week, you met the wives, and we'll put those links up here. Now we're going to bring them together. So first we have Tommy and Sandra. Sandra. I know that. I was thinking about somebody else. We have Tommy and Sandra. And we have Ben and Raquel. And we have Victor and Onita.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, the gang is all here. How are you all feeling?
Tired.
Yeah, it's Friday.
Good, yes.
Yeah. Grateful. We made it.
Yeah, grateful, but also tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like par for the course. By the time we get to Friday, we're tired.
Yeah.
Well, praise the Lord for the Sabbath that we can just relax and rejuvenate and fellowship. And so we're happy about that. A lot of times it has been my experience in talking to different couples that, especially people who might be of the Adventist faith, that Friday night and Sabbath often finds them in conflict. And the time when it should be restful and recuperative, there are a lot of couples who end up fighting on this day. And so what we want to start off talking about is conflict resolution. What are your tools? We talked a little bit about, you all, the different ways that you all handle want to deal, but what tools do you use to actually resolve it once you kind of both come back together? Someone may take a few minutes or a day to kind of process, but once you actually come back together, how do you resolve conflict? And I'm going to start with Sandra and Tommy.
Ay.
Oh my goodness.
Well, you can let him talk first if you want.
No, let her talk first. I'm here though.
You're such a gentleman thing.
I love you.
First, I want to say, nothing really works. Nothing sticks. We put things in. What is it? I just had a senior moment. We set things up, right? How, this is when something happens, this is what we're going to do. And when this happens, this is how we're going to manage it. And that's okay when you make that plan, when everything is all but then when, heat and tension and sleep and hanger, whatever the safe word gets thrown out I know. It's all out the window. even after all of this time. So we have put many things in place, but are they always successful? Absolutely not. Typically, I think we can say for the most part, like recovery time is much shorter. And it's usually him needing the recovery time because I'm like, let's talk, let's get it out of the way. Life is short. We don't want to let the sun set on. Da 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 da. And he's like, you're gonna have to give me a minute, or 20, or overnight, right? And so it's challenging. It's challenging. It's challenging for me because I want to clear the air. I want to move on. And he's like, we're okay, but you just got to give me a minute to. And so it's still hard after all of this time. Sometimes.
Yeah, because after we spoke about it, I'm sorry. After we had our own individual podcast, she's right. But what we try to do is not try. I try to talk to her like I love her because I do, and so that may take a minute because I'm not in love with you right now. But it works. It ends up being okay. I'll apologize. If I'm wrong, even if I'm right, I apologize because it needs to be said.
Yeah. So, just I'm sorry for the confusion. I'm sorry for the time to get back to this place. I'm sorry for strife. We don't want strife.
Okay, can I have a follow-up question? Here's my follow-up question that I think that I've had, and I'm quite certain a lot of single people have. What in the world are y'all fighting about after 35 years, 36 years? It just, it's like, to me, there are not even that many things to fight about. So it's always like, what in the world?
Spoken like someone who just hasn't lived with the same person for 36 years. Let's see.
Is it the same stuff from the beginning, or is it just like little, just nitpicky? Like, you don't have to tell me. The specific would be good, but just to give, but like you don't have to, put all your stuff out in the street. But you know what I'm saying?
But it could be anything, something and nothing. Like, again, like depending on how your day went, or how you're feeling, or that was supposed to be in jest or a joke, but I didn't receive it that way because you know what I'm saying.
No, I understand that. So it's just like because of just life and nature, and you just frustrated or tired or whatever. Something hits you the wrong way, and then it becomes a thing that wasn't really.
Something didn't go
like these major, big, humongous issues.
No.
Okay, that's the thing that we're like. I'm just like, man. No. That still haven't knocked down, drag out something like.
Oh no.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. Okay.
Tommy,
go ahead, Renee.
Tommy actually just said something that raised a question for me too. But if anybody else has has an answer to Lorraine's question, I still want to hear that as well. But he said in the midst of the argument, he was like, "I'm not in love with you right now." So that in love versus love, I know that those are two different things. But can either of you kind of say more on that?
Well, it's the same thing. I love her. I never stopped loving her. But you fall where she knows there's times that I ain't liking you right now.
You don't feel like it.
Right. That's what I was about to say. It sounds like it's more along the feeling, along the line of that feeling.
Yeah. It's not so deep that it's over. You know what I mean? We're going to get past this. We just got to get past this. That's all.
Right.
It's never a deal breaker, miscommunication, but you my person and I'm your person. And so we got to get through this and keep it moving.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, but I ain't liking you right now. So you going in, I'm going to go on in there and you stay here. I'm going to take a walk and you know.
That makes sense.
We don't need to say last week. There was something happened a long time ago, and you guys, I don't know if you were married at this point or not, but you ran out the door expecting Vic to run behind you.
Yeah.
And he did not.
Yeah,
I several times this week and laughed. I was like, And that's how you feel, like, and then when you look in hindsight, it's like, what in the world?
Right.
Did anyone else want to comment on that?
Sandra said something about taking a walk. I recently have discovered through one of the podcasts or something I'm reading, that it is good to kind of to help to regulate your emotions. That energy, exerting that, taking a walk, being in nature, crying too. Crying is good if that's your, like, if it helps you to kind of get it out, because
Release.
yeah, you need a release, because sometimes the blow up is just because you've not had a moment to regulate. It's not even that it's that issue. Let the person regulate. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I want to talk about it now and get it all the way out. He wanted to internalize it, process it, and deal with it. And for a while, for years, I'd be like, I want to talk about it now. He didn't want to. I couldn't. He didn't verbalize. I need a moment to pull it, and I also didn't. I internally didn't get that's what it was. So I would say with time, and also with learning, being open to learning more from other people, from therapists and different, self-help books or whatever. It's just learning another mode of how we can communicate better with each other, and understanding and accepting that person's way of regulating their emotions. Also understanding that if I'm a person who dealt with abandonment, that I need to be able to express to him, your silence is actually telling me like a form of abandonment. So I actually need to hear the words. And this was early on. This is years. I mean, I may have actually verbalized it more even this year more than ever, as I've been doing a lot more work on me. But I've been able to verbalize, this is why it bothered me so. Not because he even began to say the words, and I'll let you talk more about it too, but he even began to say, Anita, I don't want to talk about it right now. That strong woman in me who like, what do you mean? Like, you're not muzzling me. I want to talk about it, but I couldn't hear it. What he was really saying was, let me regulate, let me go, and let me deal with it, and let me come back to it. And then sometimes and I had to receive this too. And he's just like, okay, it wasn't throwing me off, like brushing me off, like I don't want to hear it. It was, okay, I conceded this moment, because you don't need to win every argument, every discussion needs to be won. But I had to hear from me to help me be able to, I know he loves me, to tell me. So at this point, there's moments too where we literally we had to say, I really don't like you right now. Like, I had to walk away. But in this moment, when it's a moment of contention or something, because the devil's real tricky in coming and whispering things in your ears while you're already at that state, right? I verbalize, I actually need you to say to me, I love you, I'm going nowhere, but I really don't want to talk about this right now. And I had to say, okay, thank you for that. But also, let's not, because we like Sandra said, some of these tools don't stick all the time. We sometimes use pineapples too. We're like, hey, but remember the tool. So okay, we're gonna get back to it, but let's really get back to it. Let's not brush it under the rug, because the same thing may happen again, and it like re-brings that up. So now it's just like throwing another log in the fire, and we've never resolved this one. So really being intentional. Okay, if we want to talk about this right now, to cooler heads prevail, let's do that later. And me being able to respect the fact that sometimes, again, I've had to say, okay, he don't want to talk about it right now, and don't take it personal. I did really learn to don't take it personal that he doesn't want to talk about it right now, because he's needing this time to process it however way he needs to do that.
And I would say, even in one sense, take it personally, because he loves you so much. He doesn't want to say something crazy.
Good point.
So needs to regulate and be like, oh no, because what's about to come out ain't right. That's gonna make it worse. So let me go ahead and just take a moment, because I know how I need to process stuff. And I'm similar. I need to not talk to you right now. I need to just take a break and just kind of deal with that. So anybody else want to comment on that before we go to the next?
Yeah, I'll comment. So Ebony talked about a book I'm writing that I didn't know about, but she saw it. I think one of the chapters, to summarize what Onita just said, would be reading the room.
I like it.
So I think in some instances, the wives and the husbands know their counterparts so much, they know when things aren't jiving. I left work today at 4:45 to give real life updates. I left work at 4:45 left DC at 4:45, and you know, for some reason, I forgot today was Friday.
Yeah.
So Nita was like, "Don't forget, we got to be on at 6." So I probably spent $70 on HOV so I can get home. But as soon as I walked in the door at 5:55, Bonita had 20 questions. How was your day? How was the lunch? And I'm like, I just walked in the door. I need to use the bathroom and get to the video. So I think, you know, us as guys, we like to play it back in our minds what we did that day. So was that person hating on me? Let us figure all that out, because when we actually start talking about it, we want to at least have a plan, because the ladies are going to start asking us questions. Well, what did you do this?
Yes.
Did you do that? Did you think about this? And it's like, see, that's why I needed that 20 minutes to decompress, because I knew you were going to have these questions. Now, on the conflict resolution, no disrespect to Ben and Raquel for the young, or Tommy and Sandra being married longer than us. If Onita and I are mad with each other and she says, "I don't like you right now," that's an instant laugh, because it's like, you know what we fussing about don't even matter. Yeah. Or you want mayonnaise or mustard on that sandwich. Like, so I think we have gotten, I can't really say of a time, Onita may disagree, but for me, I can't say a time where it was a drag out. I'm so done with this. First of all, we can't do that anyway, because I said when she goes to take me for child support, I would live in the basement anyway, because I got 4. So, and then, like we talked about in our breakouts, we're trying to create legacies that divorce is not an option and things like that. So yeah, you know, she may get mad, I may get mad, but it's a few minutes later we're back to normal. Or he said, "Hey, we're pushing this out because this ain't really time we should spend." Because it wasn't a big deal. So like when I came home, I wasn't ready to talk about my day, so I could just look and say, "Really?" And okay, he'll talk about it when he wants to talk about it, and when he's ready, she'll be ready.
Yeah. No, I like that. So.
And I was gonna say, personalities and conditioning is a thing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because you know, you've established things in your time together, and so that nonverbal body language, that's y'all's dance. That's Victor and Onita's dance. Right.
Yeah.
And so maybe not Tommy and Sandra's, because if he'd look at me like, really something, and I'm like, what? No. Each couple, you have your, you know what I'm saying? And so it works.
Or you have to find yours, because there's couples who've been married a long time who still haven't found theirs. Right. And they are having the knockdown drag outs after decades of being married.
Yeah.
That's a dance. That's a very unhealthy dance. And so, but I understand what you're saying, because it's true it's true in all relationships, really. But the thing about marriage is that you're with each other all the time, as opposed to other relationships. You can go to your separate homes and like, okay, I'm whatever, I don't got to deal with that. But when you're married, you have to. So I like that.
Sometimes other factors too, like Onita and I started off with the other people's kids, right? That became our kids. And so, you know, some of the couples who we were newlyweds with back in 2000, the things that they would, you know, argue about, it's like, wow, that in our, you know, we would say that's really so small.
Like, that's petty.
You know, because we had to throw in, you know, we had family members who were attacking our marriage because they didn't know what was going on in our house. So a lot of family members want to know all your business, then judge you about it, and then talk about it. So we wanted to show the 3 teenagers, hey, this is an opportunity to forget all those things that happened in the past. We're going to start anew, and we're going to be there for you. Yeah, we're not your biological parents, but we're going to do everything in our power to give you the best experience. So we really had to grow up fast. So we didn't get those opportunities to say, oh, Vic, you left the toilet seat up, or you put the toilet paper inside and it should be outside.
Come on.
Like, you know, those type of things that friends of ours were really having a tough time with.
That's a big
I did fall in the toilet one time.
That's very, very unpleasant.
Yes.
Ben, like you, and since we're just to stay on this for a minute, Ben and Raquel, what happens if somebody's immovable on a point? Because, you know, most stuff is like, okay, yeah, we can resolve that, or this was small and this, but some stuff you're just like, here I stand, I can do no other. And I ain't moving. So what happens when you are married and one person is immovable on a point, and actually both of you are, because you're just like, well, I'm not coming to your side, and well, I'm not coming to your side. How do you resolve that?
I mean, and maybe this is just the 5.5 years. I just full transparency. I don't know if we have encountered that ever.
No.
Well, what if you do?
I'm gonna call Victor and Anita and Tommy.
That's a good word, though, for real.
That's a good word.
That's awesome.
Phone a friend.
But you know, but really, that's how I process. That's how I process things. I try to find people who've gone before me, try to get some advice, and yeah, but I don't know. I really don't think that we've had something. We've had stuff where we've been very like stubborn, or you know,
yeah,
but not immovable. Eventually, one of us will. You know.
I feel like if anything, the longest argument that we've had that we didn't really communicate to each other might have been max 2 days. Yeah. But like most of the time, like even though I'm the one that needs my space, by the end of the night, like I like to sit down like, hey, look, I'm sorry I did this. I think we should do this next time. So we'll always end up going to sleep already with the issue resolved. But yeah, the longest is probably like 2 days that I needed more time to think through. Yeah,
because like that's what I was talking about in the guys breakout, or the first session. Like I would almost fixate on being like, there is no, I don't know, like, not that there is no such thing as immovable, but like to the point that she would be like, I need you to calm down because no, like I can't fathom trying to go to sleep right now. Like I won't sleep. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna be up all night. So I have to like, I don't know. We have to come to some sort of resolution. I think, you know, there have been times like maybe one that I felt like I was like, bro, I'm immovable on this. But then it was like, well,
then you move.
Being immovable on this will be super costly to our relationship. Like when I was in seminary, you know, Andrews University is like $34 million a year. And he was like, I want to go to school. And I was like, I make $1,200 a month. Like, how are we going to send you to school? And for me, like, I was just like, in my mind, immovable. Like, no, like, this is such, you know, black and white. Like, there's no way. But I could sense that, like, if I were to become like immovable, like that would have, I feel like that would have damaged your confidence and damaged your, you know, there's context to that too. Like Raquel's been trying to finish school forever, and then there was always something that, you know, she had to go to work or, you know, whatever.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want to be another person to tell her no. So like, I swallowed that joint so hard. It's like, I look at our debt. I'm like, but I mean, you know, it was one of those that I feel like in the long run, like Raquel finished college. You know what I mean? That was like a mountain.
Yeah.
Put down. I feel like, you know, we wouldn't have gotten divorced, but it would have been like you were just gonna know. You know what I mean? And so yeah, like I feel like if there's something that becomes immovable, I feel like unless it's like unless she's asking me to like renounce God or something, like I'll figure it out.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
The phrase.
We're not suggesting that. I like that.
Well, I know. I'm just saying, like, they're like. Yeah. I don't know.
There is no in your mind. There's no such thing. There has to be a way.
There's gotta be. Yeah. There's gotta be some way that this can work out, even if it means like I gotta, take the L or she takes the L, something like that. Like one of us will just be like, okay, because I love you more than this thing.
Right.
We'll try
to have peace and to be right.
Yeah,
that's the point. Yeah, I think that when you said that about the school thing, it's like you couldn't see it, but at the end of the day, if you are a believer in God and you believe in your marriage, you were just like, well, I can't see it, and this is stressing me out, but I love her. I love God. God, you got to work this out because it's her desire. It can't be all about what I want and what I see and what I think. And that's when nothing becomes immovable. When you but Onita.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All I heard in my mind when Ben was saying that one part was count the cost. Just count the cost of what this really is worth. Like, I'm freaking out, but is it worth what is this really worth it to me at the end of the day? Like, to your point, Lorraine just summed it up again. If you love this person, I love God, we're going to work it out. But I would just say, people writing down tips, count the cost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And one of the things I heard.
Ebony, then Renee.
Okay.
I was going to circle back to the point that the first thing that Ben said that was, a whole word was he would phone a friend.
Yes.
And like real talk, if you as married couples, we have to have folks that are safe spaces for us. We have to have wise counsel. I'll be completely transparent and say Sandra is my person in that space. There are things that I'm able to go to her and say, I don't know. And my husband and I have been married 25 years, but you have to have that circle. You have to have that, those folks that you can go to who are going to pour into you the right thing to do versus, gassing you up and saying, man, you shouldn't agree with her going to school or whatever. Like those are not the people that you need in your marriage.
Renee?
Yeah, at the very end, he said sometimes you have to take the L. And I think I just heard this week, if it was not said on any one of these podcasts or programs, is that there's really no such thing as taking an L. Because that L really stands for lesson. There's always opportunities to learn from every challenge. And when you guys get to the point where you've resolved the issue, you've worked through something, and both of you have walked away with a valuable lesson that would help you in going forward. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm. It's the goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Victor said
in your toolbox.
Yeah. Victor said on the first episode, if one of us loses, we both lose.
Right.
So anyway, Renee, do you have the next question?
Sure, I do. Okay. So let's see here. I'm going to ask a question about trust. All right. Obviously, in all relationships, trust is extremely important. Onita, I heard you say that when you guys are in these moments of conflict and Victor might get a little bit quiet, that could trigger or even touch on the sensitivity of the abandonment issue, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So when he says, I'll address it later, you are now at a point where you fully trust that he is going to come back and continue this conversation, right? And I can imagine that has happened because that's what he has done over and over again, right? Yeah. One of the questions that came up is when it comes to trust, is it possible to trust your partner in one area and not trust your partner in another? Are there any areas where you don't trust them?
Yes.
And I will say, so since everybody's really thinking, what about, because one thing that I always hear is that I'm gonna fix the thing. I'm gonna take out the thing. I'm gonna do that. So maybe there's an issue there, but are there any others?
Someone said yes.
She don't trust me if she leaves a piece of pie on the island. She don't trust me enough to walk past that pie and not eat it. Okay. I mean, I think in the broad sense, there are some trust issues. I think you come into relationships with trust issues, and then if that person you're with does something that has triggered an old memory, you know, sometimes you'll say that's just like, and the person that they say it, you may despise. So now you're saying I'm like that person. So it's like, no, I didn't mean that. I just said when you did, and then I've turned it off now, because if I feel like there's 10 boxes and I check 9 of them, and the person you just compared me to checks 2 of them, now you're aligning me with that person. Mm-hmm. So now I don't want to hear anything else that we said. Now we're in conflict, right? And we're in conflict because of the trust. I truly believe we are all functioning adults with our own minds. So, you know, you have to, with the trust piece, you have to believe that the person you're with is the person you love, you trust, and you don't have to overthink it in your mind and like, hey, Onita's going to be at a conference today and it's going to be mostly guys. Should I be worried? Like, no, you know, and I think that's where a trust factor comes in. You can't say you trust me if I'm a housewife and I never go anywhere. It's a situation where the person is out and dealing with the things. And then I think about it like this: if I don't trust Onita, what am I doing? Why do I have that insecurity? Am I out there playing games and now I'm saying I'm trying to control all the situations? So she don't know that she really shouldn't be trusting me, but I'm out there saying, what you doing? So I know, Renee, I started with the pie and then I got real on it, but
we like that. So
it was good. It was good.
Can I throw some context?
Sure.
I was watching a podcast today with a couple, and she said she never had any issues trusting him, like with, you know, infidelity or any of that kind of stuff. But when he said he was going to do something, he didn't do it. And she's like, so that was an area that I struggle with, because I'm the kind of person who, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it, small or big. And he would have all of these big dreams and goals. And he'd be like, I'm going to do this. And then she was like, she didn't see no action, you know? And so in that particular area, she struggled to trust him and then even, you know, respect him in that sense, because he never followed through. But then she communicated that to him and he started to follow through, and they're fine. But so that's kind of the context of as you grow with somebody. And so.
And I'll give you context to your context. So timing and situation has a big role in that. So this is PG-13 or because there could be I'll do analogies. There could be certain situations where I'll say yes to everything. Now later on, I may not remember that I said yes to that.
Oh my.
But then Onita's gonna say, you remember when you said you would do this, this, and this? Now, Onita didn't say do it by 10 o'clock.
Yes.
Onita just said do it. So to me, I can do it when I want to do it, not when you actually said do it. What she didn't say, she just said, hey, you gonna take that trash out? Yes, I'm gonna take the trash out. Hey, the trash truck is going down the street. The trash is still here. All right, well, I'll get in my car and I'll drive it on the other side. So I think that's a misconception, and I'm glad you pointed out expectation.
Yes.
Can you take the trash out tonight? That's much better sentence than saying, can you take the trash out?
That's valid.
Well, she was saying, and I think that's a good point. She was saying that these were just things that he was saying. It wasn't coming from her. He was just expressing these things that he wanted to do, but then he would never actually follow through and doing them. Sandra had her hand up, and then
I really wanted to ask a question about the content.
When did I have my hand up? I don't remember.
That's my sister.
All right, about this, you would, yeah. You're talking about trust. We were talking about trust. Okay, well, we'll come back to you, Renee.
Oh. He said the guy was saying this about her, but he was really doing something. And I'm gonna say that you know, we are the sum of our environments. The way we grew up, folks we grew up with, what we saw folks doing, and plant seeds. And sometimes you don't even realize that they have been planted until you are an adult in circumstances, situations, and then things look similar. And then it's like, whoa, you know? And so, like when Anita said about, you know, abandonment, you know, sometimes you don't know how things really impacted you when you were young because you lived how you lived. It's just how you lived. And now here you are trying to, you know, have this beautiful relationship or, you know, just the two of you or raise a family and then things happen. And you're like, wait a minute, this looks familiar. Or this sounds familiar. Or this feels some kind of way. You know? And so that's the thing too.
No, I love it.
You bring things sometimes to the altar with you that you don't even realize that you have brought. You're there saying that I do with the belief that of course I won't, whatever it is. And then life happens. Then life happens. And so then
Another thing that I wanted to just bring up real quick, in Onita and I's situation, I think if we're using an analogy about gas, so Onita comes into a relationship with her trust on a full tank. So you kind of start, I trust you completely, and you lose. I come in with my tank on empty, and you build the trust. So that's also another situation that couples need to understand. How do I go into trust? Clearly, or do you have to earn it? And until I earn it, I'm not giving it to you.
And where do you think that came from? Where do you think that came from?
Back to your point about past.
Absolutely.
Because we don't walk to the altar brand new. We walk to the altar with all those bags that we had.
That's correct.
It doesn't have to be dating. It could just be general relationship. Did you grow up around a lot of siblings? Were both parents there? You know, so all those things lead into. That's why you must talk to the person you're marrying, and don't wait to have those conversations after you say I do.
That's ideal. That's ideal.
I gotta tweet that one about the gas tank full and empty.
That's good.
I'm a gas full person. Go ahead, Renee.
He actually just kind of spoke to what I was going to say, because the example that they had given a little bit earlier, I was thinking about the trust issue that he described. It's not necessarily that she would have a trust issue with him. She just has a trust issue, period. That is, you know, it's kind of coming up with her that she's having to deal with him. It's not that she doesn't trust him per se, but it's like you said, it's something that I kind of grew up with, and this situation has caused it to surface, and now we kind of got to deal with it together. So that was my understanding from what they just said.
So this that's a cool analogy, the tank full versus like the tank needing to be full or filled, because I come in like tank full, you know what I mean? And Raquel's like, you're dumb for that because people take advantage of you.
That's how we are. I'm fully empty.
From like, you have to earn it, you know what I mean? And so on this whole thing of like trust and so we're talking about the tank and trust. It made me think of a story about how I think that we keep our because I had girlfriends that cheated on me, like with friends of mine, prior friends, whatever. You know what I mean? So like, and I feel like for us, like I know for me, that's something like I don't want to have to worry about that stuff. So like, I address it right away. You know, I feel something, and so does she. And what she does, because she sees things from like, you need to like fill the tank with trust. She sees things that I don't see because I'm just I'm running on full right now. So there was a person that I went to high school with who, like, we never dated, we were just friends, but we bumped into each other while I was up at seminary, and I hadn't seen her in years. And I was out jogging, and like she rolled up on me in her car. It's like, what are you doing here? I go, I live here now. And she was like, man, like, you know, you should come over and like, you know, we'll watch a movie, like whatever. I'm like, okay, cool, like that'd be fun. So I come back to the house and I'm like, Raquel, like, let's go this weekend, you know, so and so. She said, like, we can go watch a movie. And Raquel was like, remember, because the trust is way down here. She was like, how did it happen exactly?
Right.
Like, well, I was running, and she said, like, we should come over. She's like, did she say we, or did she say you? And I was like, yeah, she did say you. Yeah, but I'm like, Raquel, it's fine. She's like, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
And so in that, like, I remember being upset about being like, like, she doesn't trust me. Like, what am I? I'm just, I'm saying you can come. Like, she knows that I'm married and all this stuff, but like, that's another area. Maybe going back to the thing, like, if I had forced that, like, what is that? I've had, and I hate doing stuff like that. But I basically was like, yeah, I'm not coming. And she was like, why? What happened? I just like never responded. Like,
you didn't have to.
Like, I'm married.
And you didn't have to. You didn't have to.
No.
Right. No obligation. You didn't have to. I'm not coming.
Right.
But I think, because of stuff like that, like if I had tried to force that, I don't know, maybe that would have rubbed trust the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And forced it for what? You were smart.
Right.
Forced
it. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think like that's a cool analogy because I just went into that super trusting, and Raquel was like red flags everywhere. Like, get this girl out of here.
Yeah. I have a full tank of trust too, but as soon as you told me, I was like, oh no. Like you still gotta be wise. Like there's a like ding.
But I think it's cool. I think it's cool that Raquel even asked questions first without jumping to the absolutely not. I thought that was pretty neat.
In hindsight, I look back at it, it was kind of random. She was like, so this girl just like stopped her car in the middle of the road and invited you to go watch a movie. I was like, yeah. Like, I was like, yeah. Like,
all right, man.
Yeah.
And like,
okay.
I'm thinking as a married guy, like, if somebody invites me somewhere, Raquel is coming too.
And that's
when she's like, oh, like, you should come watch movies. Like, yeah, Raquel and I will be there. And Raquel's like, that's not what she said.
She
So it's like one of those moments where you
would have been funny if y'all had rolled up on there though.
It's like, what are all these candles for? Like, I don't know.
You've been looking real crunchy. Bonita, go ahead.
I was going to just say, this is why, and I think I said it when we were all talking, how God put us with the person we needed, because I do go all in. It's crazy because as I was younger, I feel like in the home I was in, I was raised not to trust. And I think part of my thing was when I got out of my home, I was going to be friends with everybody. Because I mean, like my daughter say now, she's like, what's that phrase, Mom? We go to the grocery store. You never met a stranger, because I'm talking to somebody in the store. But God had to put Victor with me to help balance out that, we had that yin and yang hit to balance me out where I'm all in and he'll say, no, babe, that person's like this, be careful or watch out. Mm-hmm. And I would say even it took a while sometimes for me to trust that discernment in him, because I really initially was just like, oh, that's the New Yorker in him. And then I'm like, no, this is Holy Spirit discernment. Like he's discerning this person's character. So if he's saying tread softly with this person, I need to tread softly with this person. On the flip side too, especially when it comes to women, Ben Victor has had several situations like this at work where I'm like, so how exactly did she say it? And
I didn't go see any movie.
He didn't go to the movie. But it's to that point where women, we can just pick up on, or we sense it from another woman, like what's happened. And it's not, be very clear. It's not a thing saying that I'm insecure at all about who I am and where my place lies with him. It's not even saying I don't trust him. It's the fact that, oh, this is I can sense how the situation happened. She was not meaning it in a godly, friendly way. So, and he's been good at setting up that boundary and being very like, oh, my wife did this. People complimented him today on his suit. But you look really nice. He's like, oh, thank you. Anita picked it out for me. He's very like,
they actually finished that sentence now. When somebody says at work, hey, you look nice today. Somebody else on the corner says, yeah, his wife picks out his clothes. Now, Ben, I will tell you, if you're blessed ever to have a daughter, the daughters will really be the ones who drive it. So like they'll be like, Mom, did you see that lady talking to Dad? And Onita will be like, yeah, she's on the treasury team. Well, why she gotta talk to him though? Because he's the treasurer. So it's funny, but like you can really mess with the insecurities, even if your partner doesn't have them. You may create them.
Yeah.
So it was really good that you came home and told Raquel about it, right?
Yes.
Because you could have been like, "Hey, Raquel, I'm going to hang out with an old friend," and not saying it's a guy. And you could have just been like, "Hey, I ran into an old friend and I'm going to see a movie with."
Right.
So it's you're like, "Hey, I didn't lie." But she didn't actually ask me, is it a guy or is it a girl? So communication expectations is really important. But, you did the right thing. So good for you.
Whose responsibility is it to create an environment of security in a relationship?
Both. It's both. It's both people, because each situation is the devil's going to present situations for both people. And, I think in the moment, because people will always say, "I will never," but then that's because they're not faced with it. When they are faced with it, what are you going to do? They always say pressure busts pipes. It's like, yeah, it's easy to say I never speed, right? Because you don't ever take the highway, but you get on the highway and you're doing 75 and you're like, Onita's favorite line, "I'm just going the flow of traffic." Well, you are doing 75 though. So you'll be the lucky one that they pull over. So I always feel like, to that question, it resides in both of us to create. If there's an insecurity, if I have an insecurity about Onita talking to singers, I'm like, "Onita, you was really in that singer's face." We need to talk about it, right? Because you don't want me running up to the singer saying, "Hey man, I'm tired of you being in my wife's face." And he'd be like, "Well, she was giving me the note." Right? And you look foolish, but I think both parties own that foolishness, because I'm telling you I have an insecurity and you're just saying, "Oh, it's nothing." We need to talk about why I have that insecurity and how we get over it, versus, "Oh, that's he's like a brother to me." Well, for some reason my insecurity is telling me he's not a brother for you. So how do we fix that? Same thing for the men, so.
Well, we have a question in the chat that we actually had on the list, so it kind of fits into this conversation. So,
this is great.
Sherry Lynn, thank you for your question. She also had a comment there. I'm not sure if you all saw. She said,
"Yeah,
my husband was also very trusting, and women would come up to him and ask for Bible studies because they did that a lot. I would say no, not that I didn't trust him, but he didn't see what I see."
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a real
She's your helpmate. She helped you see what you don't see.
That's right.
That's a hard one, because a hard one, in fact, that like, well, they just want to get close to God. So how can I tell them no, right? Obviously, why can't both Onita and I go and give Bible?
That's how that's gonna go down.
That's right.
Right. I don't know what his role is. If maybe he's an elder, maybe, but. We talked about this in Rhode Island. There shouldn't be situations where the opposite sex is being alone with someone. So even if you're talking about Bible study, we're going to come 2 or 3 together, and 15 minutes, you're going to get 3 Bible studies that night. And then, if that's truly what you wanted, you will have us back. But if you don't ask us back, then we would see your intentions and realize there was something else there.
Sandra. And then Tommy, we haven't heard from Tommy in a while, but you want to address this question, Sandra?
No, just the comment when Victor said, you don't want somebody saying to you, "Oh, that's nothing." Don't diminish your person's experience or how they're feeling about whatever the situation is. It needs to be addressed. Don't just shut it down like,
Tommy, let me ask you this question that came up in the chat. How do you all deal with best friends of the opposite sex? I suspect I know how this is going to go down, but I'm going to ask anyway. Tommy?
Is Tommy gone?
You're muted.
I'm not going. Hold on a minute, Joe.
All right, cool.
I don't think that exists.
We wait on.
So
does anybody else want to answer that while we Well,
yeah. I don't think that question. I don't think that exists.
I've seen it.
As far as truly your best friend is my best friend is of the opposite sex. It's Onita.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see how, because I have friends who say that stuff, and I just was like, what do you mean? How is that possible?
Mm.
That you're married, but somebody else is your best friend. That doesn't
another
compute.
Opposite sex.
That doesn't compute for me. So when I've never had a discussion about this question where the answers made sense to me. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think that's possible.
Okay.
Even in some situations where sexual orientation may be in question, I still don't believe that person, because then it's like, well, you don't have anything to worry about. I still don't believe that there is somebody who's going to be more friendly to me than my spouse.
How about if they were friends before you got married?
Don't care, because you didn't get married to them before we met. So, so I'm not in the middle type of person on this.
All right. Okay. Well, we got you.
Okay. No more elaboration.
That was pretty point blank. Tommy, what do you think? Best friends of the opposite sex. How does that work in your mind?
It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. How about that? That's just cut and dry. Yeah, it doesn't work because it just doesn't work. I don't feel comfortable around. Yeah, no, it doesn't work. That's what I got. Where you at, son? I love you, girl.
For him, if you feel that doesn't work, so we can just go to the next one.
Yeah, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
What you saying? What you mean? It doesn't work.
No, it don't work. Especially for me, because I'm a jealous type of guy. So I don't want nobody in my wife's face talking about this her best friend. He is her best friend. We have a problem with that, and the same for me. I respect that and understand. I lived a long time, and I know people have ulterior motives, even though they're in your face grinning like we even going to lie. Again, to you, Vic, we're gonna do Bible study. No, we're not doing Bible study. That's like me as a head deacon. You don't go to any single person's house by yourself.
That's right.
You take somebody with you. Because they'll hem you up, and there you go.
That's right.
You walk to the door.
Oh my goodness! It locked the door. If you don't, I'm gonna tell everybody you did. Now,
That's right.
I'm going in with somebody, accountability partner, so we don't have to even worry with that situation.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Well,
Ebony, how about you? Ebony, how about you? How do you feel about that?
I see both sides of it. I think that it's possible, and I know that that's not something that my husband is comfortable with. So I don't have best friends. I don't really have. I won't say I don't have close friends of the opposite sex, because I do, but I don't have anyone. There's no man other than my husband that I'm going to be in the same space with alone in a way that could be misconstrued. Now, like I have coworkers that I travel with sometimes. That's different. But I think it can, but it's not what I do because it's not my husband's preference.
Okay. Well, I agree. I mean, I have a best friend. I have several of them. I don't need a man to be my best friend unless I'm married to him, and I don't need him to have no other women. You had 50 years to do that. Now we can be best friends. So all the time before you knew me, you could have been friends. So there's a difference to me when you incorporate, like that person becomes your friend, and I've heard this where you were best friends before with that person of the opposite sex, but then your husband becomes best friends with him, and maybe you becomes best friends with the wife or whatever. I've heard couples say that, like, we were best friends before, but now she's best friends with her, my former best friend, and I hang out with her husband and all of that. Mm-hmm. That's different than you've incorporated a relationship. But just to still just be out doing best friend stuff, nah, I'm good on that. Mm-hmm. All right, we're gonna jump.
Raquel had her hand up for that one too.
Yeah.
Oh, Oh, can I say something really quick then?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically when Ben and I think we just started, well, no, we were probably like a year into dating. And growing up, I've always had guy best friends. And so I had this one particular guy best friend that I felt like he didn't like Ben. He would always try to put like these negative thoughts into my head. It's like, wait, but like, how do you love him? You only met him like 6 months, and like you guys talk about, just stuff like that. And so I remember I told Ben about that, and that was our very first argument that we had. And so I remember I told Ben about that. Ben was like, I don't want you to see him anymore. And so that was very hard for me because I had been friends with him since elementary school. We lived like in the same neighborhood and stuff like that. And so that was very hard for me. And so I thought about it, and I was like, honestly, I don't see that we could be friends because he's out here trying to put these negative thoughts in my head, telling me that I don't need to marry him and that he's not the one and he knows and this and this and that. And so I cut ties with him because I loved him and not my friend that much. But if I knew that I wanted to marry him and he did not feel comfortable with that connection that I had, then bye.
Yeah, because he liked you, and that's why he was trying to put those negative thoughts in your head.
100%.
You just hadn't said it yourself.
Like he's always in the friend zone, so I knew he's always in the friend zone. But then when he started doing that, I was like, that's not no, that's not nice, bro.
A guy in the friend zone is usually just waiting for somebody to slip up, so they can slide in because they have such good knowledge and has developed that friendship with you, so it wouldn't be a big transition for them if you allowed it. Believe me,
Tommy, you better say that.
I've been here a while. I understand how that works. Believe me.
Because like kind of how like Raquel was like,
come on, my Thundercat.
You better know it, girl.
I love it.
Mercy.
I love it.
Ben, what were you about to say? They go crazy.
I haven't senior citizens on the panel.
It's kind of like how Raquel was like, no, that girl who rolled up on you in the car, like Raquel showed a blind spot to me. I was like, Raquel, be for real. Like, look at these text messages. Like, how else could we interpret this? Because I feel like, to answer the like, can there be best friends of the opposite sex? I feel like maybe my answer to that might be a little more nuanced in the thing of like, absolutely not if the person is not a ally of your relationship. That person,
well, beautiful.
Even a friend of the same gender,
same
right?
sex,
like, you know what I mean? Like if that person, all they're ever doing is tearing down the relationship and like not trying to give the person the benefit of the doubt, like you just can't have that person as a friend, period. And then like one of my best friends in the whole world are my friends Vanessa and Jamil, right? And so notice it's Vanessa and Jamil, like you know what I mean? Like I knew Vanessa first, right? But like now it's kind of like, in their relationship, I'm both of their friends, and in our relationship, Vanessa is both of our friends. Like it's not, like Vanessa and I we don't just like go get lunch, you know what I mean? Like we all hang out and we are all supportive of each other. We're all allies of each other's relationship. I think that's like the only so like I said, I feel like my answer is a little bit nuanced, but it boils down to like if that person's only ever cutting you down and it's not even like they're trying to give you real advice or just a hater, then like
that's
because I think that and this really comes into another topic, and Ebony's going to go next, but I just want to talk about boundaries because
that's what I was about to talk about.
Okay, good. Well, I'll just say this. Pastor Ben was my pastor before he was my pilot, and flying me all over to the Caribbean and stuff. But and we're great friends, and I'm literally old enough to be his mother. But when I literally, but when I met with him, I always wanted to keep the door open because people say crazy stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So just I'd be in the office, we'd be laughing, we'd talk for hours, but the door's open, anybody can come and see what's happening. And I think that's how you honor your friend and their relationship. It's also how you honor yourself, you know. And I think
the appearance of evil.
Yes.
That's so important when we are talking as Christians, when we're talking about how to navigate these types of relationships as single people as well as married people, you know, because on the other hand, there are a lot of women in the church who treat single women as if they always trying to get their husband. And we not. I mean, there are people who have bad intentions, but for the most part, we're not. But then we feel uncomfortable and treated. So that's a whole different thing around security and all of that. So we also have to manage that. But I think that understanding clear and safe boundaries while not being, not shunning people and making people feel uncomfortable because they talk to your husband. I'm just I wasn't hugged up on him. I just said good morning. And so let's all relax, you know, you could ask my friends if I would even ever be attracted to somebody like that. They'll tell you that. So I just think that. So Ebony, go ahead and dive deeper into that.
So I wasn't coming at boundaries. My thoughts weren't really coming at boundaries from that point, because I feel like we have kind of fleshed out boundaries as far as the opposite, right? But I'm thinking more so kind of, our boundaries, two parts. Are they necessary and or appropriate? Why are there balloons?
I don't know what happened there.
Was it your iPad? You on your iPad or your iPhone?
Yes, I am on my
Yeah, and Ben's been giving thumbs up all night just by sitting right here, and he's just giving thumbs.
Okay, now that's okay. That is wild.
Okay, because I saw a couple thumbs ups, and I'm
is that how that works? Because I've been why does that keep popping up over?
Yeah, you were sitting like this, and it's oh, he's giving a thumbs up.
Yes. So, well, I'm on my Mac, so it's no telling what happened on that. Anywho, stay focused. Okay, so thinking two parts about boundaries. Are boundaries necessary? Are they appropriate in marriage? So, and here's why I'm asking. A lot of times when we think about boundaries, we're thinking about other relationships, or if I'm single, I have to set boundaries so that I can stay, I can stay appropriate. If I am, at work, I'm setting boundaries so that, whatever. But within your marriage, so this is your person, you've decided that this is your person. Are there situations where boundaries are necessary or appropriate?
Being that I'm still finishing up my book by Nedra Tawwab. I'm realizing that definitely having boundaries in your marriage, and she said you even had the boundaries for yourself. I agree. It ties back to actually not having the boundaries in your marriage can lead to emotional enmeshment. We talked about that, I don't know, 5-6 episodes ago, but because to the point we have come in two different people, there becomes, like Chandra said, there is some conditioning that begins to happen. We begin learning each other, having some of the same modes, patterns of speech, and finish each other's sentences and all of that. But there does need to be some boundaries where it's healthy for us both to have those boundaries, where there are some things where there needs to be, this is my space, this is my thing. You go do your thing, I have my thing, because we are still individuals. And if we don't have those boundaries in the marriage, then you do become emotional enmeshed. You start to, your boundaries become very porous. I'm now feeding off his mood. He mad, now I'm mad. Now the whole house mad. I'm sad, he's sad. Now the whole house sad. Where there needs to be these boundaries, even within the marriage, for the healthy, I don't know what I'm trying to say, the health of the marriage, basically.
Yeah. Sandra, you had a point?
Two, if I can remember, senior moments occur. So I think there are boundaries also with, so how to treat me boundaries. You know, like yelling is not okay.
Right.
It's not, or you know, if before me, you know, you spoke a certain way, but that just rips me to shreds. Then we, you know, so I think that's the thing. And I'm gonna start using this pen and writing things down. I'm tired.
I do it the whole time.
Stuff slips. So it was that, and also Anita said something.
I mean, that was good in itself too, though, Sandra, saying so you'll know how to treat me. Because we automatically assume too, we've been together so long. You know, 20-year-old and 30-year-old Anita now needs different things.
Yes, and it changes. I'm not the same person, you know, at 22 that I am now. When I was 22, that I am now at 58. It's just not the same. And when you were saying about boundaries, I'm an empath. So when Tommy's feeling low, I feel low. I don't want to, and I fight it.
Yeah.
But I'm an empath, you know, and so I have to you know, try to ward that off by the power of the Holy Ghost. You know what I mean? Because when he's high and then I'm high, we like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, babe. Come
on.
Because you know, or sometimes I'll say to him, where's my husband? And he's like, I'm right here. I'm like, no, you should have left that one outside. I'm talking about my husband.
Right.
It's challenging, you know. You and don't you feel like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes men, you kind of just set the tone. You set
do.
You know, if you have had a challenging day, you know, and I could be like, hey, babe, I'm at the top of the steps, babe, and he opened the door and he got this thing going on, and I'm like, ooh. You know, and I'm gonna try to, you know, but sometimes he'll just, you know, suck it on out of me too. Man, you know, and I had this plan and this plan and this that, you know, we on the phone all day and texting and little and then, whoa, no,
ain't getting
okay. So I have a follow up to that. So that's a fantastic call, Alessandra. So so when you think about like knowing that how our moods impact one another and impact the energy in our home, like do we have to set boundaries in that way? Like, I realize that you're having a difficult day. I'm here to support you, but like, you know, do we have to have conversations about like your behavior or how you show up can't be like impacting the rest of the home? Like do you need to take some time to yourself? Do you kind of need to take some time to collect yourself? You know, is that an appropriate boundary to set? That's to anybody. Ben, Raquel, y'all have any thoughts on that?
I mean, yes, I think to a degree, I don't know how to, maybe this comes out harsh. I don't know. But like to a degree, it's like Raquel is an adult. You know what I mean? Like if I'm like, hey, I'm here to help, like, how can I help you? And she's just like, me. And I do it like 2 or 3 times, like, okay, cool. Like you're an adult. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like I can't. And I feel like that's a toxic cycle that, like, you know, we don't really have that. Like there are people who are stuck in that cycle, or like that's what happens all the time. But like and I do it too. You know, there are days where, you know, Raquel's like, yo, what's going on? I was like, man, you know, I don't want to talk about it. And she's like, okay, cool. Like, well, I'm gonna be over here like when you're ready to
when you feel better, when you've decompressed or whatever. You know.
And I mean, and there was a lot of times with that, like, you know, it's especially when we were pastoring and I was just like going through it. Like, maybe this is bleeding into like personal time or whatever, but like, you know, there's this stereotype, maybe like women or wives don't like when their husbands play video games or something, you know, like there's like a joke, like the second they hear the PlayStation turn, it's like, what are you doing? You know, like, well, you know, if you know, if I had a friend who was like, dude, like get on the Xbox or something, like, and Raquel noticed that was, I don't know, therapeutic or whatever, to just kind of laugh with my friends or whatever, like that was a boundary that I feel like she allowed me to have, if that makes sense, because she knew that it was good for me to, like an outlet. That's the word.
Like at around 8-9 p.m. ish, that was like his guy time. So it would be him and like his guy friends. Because like I know that he had such a stressful day. It's like, all right, that is your you time, and then I have my me time, which is normally like reading or just watching something.
Good. That's good. That's good.
Yeah. But you know, I think what works, like Raquel is always willing to sit down and like, you know, Raquel roll her sleeves up and get into the trenches with me, you know what I mean? And we'd work it out, and vice versa. But it's like, if she's like rolling her sleeves up and I'm like, you know, get away from me, and not being communicative at all, like she'll be like, okay, bet, like put my sleeves back down. I'm not gonna she's not gonna ruin her day because I'm refusing to even like get up out of the, you know, the pit or whatever. She's reaching her hand in, and if now, let me say this, she won't leave me there, right? I think I talked about this when it was when we were when it was just the guys. Like Raquel finally picked up the mirror and was like, "Look at yourself." That's like, look at yourself right now. Like, enough is enough,
right?
You know, and so, you know, nuance and stuff. There's give and take. There's a the Bible says there's a time for everything. There's a season for everything.
That's good.
Yeah, it is. I think that's why too. I was saying you also have to have your own thing, because I do know some people that they don't really have their own thing, and so if the spouse is unhappy, then that's all they're worried about. And I'm like you too, Sandra, where I take on the emotions. I mean, it's of everybody. So now I'm having to not just care for him, but for the children. And so we had conversations in the past where I'm like, babe, I know you're tired, or I know you had a bad day, but when you come home, particularly the kids want to see Superman and Laughing Dad, because they, especially from a young age coming home, I took care of the home. He had to worry about nothing. When he came home, they got to see him play, watch Yo Gabba Gabba with them, and what's y'all on Fresh Beat Band. He just got to play and be fun dad. That's all they got to see a lot of times. And so I'm like, I know you had a bad day, but I need that car ride, or when he was trying to train, to be your decompression, because kids, especially for their age, they don't necessarily look at quantity, but it's the quality of time. Like, even if they got 5 minutes of him, when they get home, they want undivided attention, smile, and kind of, because our feelings, or who we are, we're teaching them, but it builds their personality, and it gives them impression and things that we may think, just whatever. I realize that through my kids communicating to us, they take it as a much bigger rejection than we realize. Sometimes when we don't have the time for them, or we're having a bad day. And sometimes it's not even a bad day. It's the face that Victor may make, because he's really trying to figure out something. Again, he's a church treasurer, so just put on your thinking cap for what all he could be stressed about. But the kids sometimes may come and creep by and go, "Did Dad have a bad day? Is Dad mad?" And then I have to be like, "Oh no, he's just, he's trying to figure out the numbers. He's trying to keep things afloat or whatever." I'm like, "Go in there and say hi." So then I'll encourage him to go. And I'm like, to him, I'm like nudging. Our text say, so the kid is coming by, like the different face on right now, because it does affect them. It does affect them.
Sandra.
So when do you think how old should the children be before they realize that sometimes Daddy does have a bad day, or sometimes Mama does have a, you know, and so that they know that it's okay if they come home from school. You know what I mean? This, because I remember, I remember two things in particular. One with my son, coming home and somebody teased him, and he felt really bad about it, but he didn't want to cry about it, and he didn't want to fight about it. And I was like, "Do you need Mama need to go?" And he was like, no, I just wanted to tell you about it, And I think it's going to be okay. And I said, well, if it's not okay, then you talk to your teacher. And then if we have to go, but thank you for sharing that you didn't have a good day. He came in looking, whatever. And our daughter Austin, she had a similar, and she was a little bit older, and somebody didn't like how she was dressing, and it was kind of bothering her. And I was like, thank you for letting me know. And it's important that I know that they don't always have good days either. So they felt comfortable knowing and learning that it's not always great.
Mm-hmm. That makes me think of, Lorraine, do you remember, I think you sent it out or you tagged us in this video of the little boy. The dad was asking him to do something and he was like, not now, Dad, I need a nap. Mm-hmm. He was like, just give me a nap and then I'll do it. Or whatever. It was so adorable. It was a little boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like,
but it was cute. Yeah, a little one, and he already knew how to express that.
Yeah. And his father honored that. It was fun. It was filming it too, but it was so cute. So when you look at children and boundaries from that perspective, I was thinking about setting boundaries with your children as it relates to your relationship with your husband or wife. Mm-hmm. Talk about that a little bit. Well, I know you all don't have children yet, but I hope you're planning for that. What to do in that, not that you're planning to have kids, you can have them if you want to, but but if you are planning, what is the plan? But for those of you who've had children, like, how did you set boundaries so that your children don't come in the middle of the relationship?
We're all ears for this one. We want to know. We're the audience now, so we want to know.
All right.
During our it's funny, we thought we were just going to call Pastor Stoddard and say, oh, we want to set up, we're getting Taylor blessed, here's the date and time. He said, sure, come in and meet with us. I need to have a session with you. And we were like, what? I mean, we're getting her blessed. Like, she's about to be 4 months old. But in that session, he specifically talked to us again about, he was telling us about discipline and in love, be quick to love, slow to speak, slow to anger. But then he also talked about the importance of, one, he talked about it being not a drag out, yelling, screaming fight, but it was important to let them, they need to see us have conflict, but also need to see resolution. One, let them see that, let them see that work out so they can learn how to do that. The other thing was, he gave us this book called Always Daddy's Little Girl. Mm-hmm. I don't think Victor ever finished reading it because, like, in chapter 2, it says something like, her daughter's first love interest is her dad, and so he couldn't take it. He was like, "What? This is disgusting." He threw the book down. I was like, "I still have it. It's a good book." Ben Raquel, so still in the read. But it talked about that. But I even got to see just even that kind of how we look to my dad, because Victor could tell you in the beginning, I only talked about all the great things my dad did to where he felt like, man, I got to do all these things to reach the mark for Anita because her dad did that. So we saw that, but it was funny. So because he told us to keep having date nights, set time aside. When you guys are talking, if she comes up, make sure she knows to wait. Mommy, dad are talking, which we were going to be big on that anyway. But I didn't realize these little tips at that moment, what it was doing. It was laying the foundation for later. And so we kept up the date nights to the point where not just people at our church, neighbors who did not go to church with us would be like, I don't know how y'all do it. They'd be married. How do y'all do it? Y'all got a date night once a week. Like, it's crazy. What do you do with the kids? And da-da-da. I was like, they're going to be all right. Even if they're eating junk and watching all the TV they're watching while we're gone, they're going to be all right. But we have to have this time together with each other.
Date night for y'all, fun night for them.
Right. We were together before they came, and we need to continue to keep building this and being healthy. The other thing is there have been times where we have been mad to the point where I walked this way, he walked that way, and one of my daughters in particular came was like, Mom, Daddy shouldn't have said that to you, and da-da-da, and she just got to talking, da-da-da-da-da-da. Now, in my house, childhood growing up, my mom would have been right there. We'd have been caddying back and forth like girlfriends. I learned early on in premarital counseling too, and with this raising of the kids, I'm going to put her on a good path to respect and still honor dad, or I'm going to put her on the path to thinking she and I equals, and it's us and it's me here and his dad over there.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
And that was not what I saw growing up. That was through counsel through the Holy Spirit and being intentional about what am I going to instill in my kids. Because yeah, I'm mad at dad at this moment. I may not even like him right now, but counting the cost again, what is this going to do? What is this ripple effect going to do down the line? Now, for instance, she's home now, and all she keeps saying, even today, he came down, he was smelling good. She was like, oh my God, I want a man like my dad. And I was like, but if every time we got in an argument or something, I didn't feel good about him, I went and started saying mean things about my kids, what would that have done? And so she has high standards. Like there's a bar these boys got to reach because not only did he set it, but I helped to encourage that by making sure I set a boundary of what I'm communicating to them about dad, even when he's here or not here. Also, how we both responding to each other in their presence. Again, letting them see the conflict. And we even tell them, sometimes they may not have seen the resolution, but the next morning, they may even come down and say, hey guys, just want to let you know, Mom and I, we had a conversation and we worked this out or da-da-da-da-da. And again, these are not all the twos we saw growing up, but this is just stuff from learning over the years. Really being an intentional to make a point to say, we want this thing to be healthy, but we also want our children to free from it, learn from it, and grow and be even better in their relationships later.
Excellent. Right. In addition to what Onita said, also, I've made it a point to apologize to them.
Yes.
Because of what Onita and I have gone through. Because even though it wasn't about them, they were still impacted by what was going on.
Yeah.
I would not a blanket one. I'll kind of go to each of them. There's a lot of conversations because I have a lot of kids. Because each of them need a different explanation. Taylor at 18 has a much different understanding than Avery at 13 or Sydney at 12.
Right.
So I basically approach all of them and have those conversations. VJ just wants chips out the pantry, so we give him some chips. And the rest of them, because I am showing them what type of guy they should be looking for.
That's right.
I'm an example. I didn't want to be, now Onita didn't say, so I was okay with it until the chapter started talking about sexually. And I was like, she's 3 years old. She shouldn't be thinking about that. So maybe I'll go back and read that book now. But it was a different situation back then.
Sounds like the plan. How important is physical appearance after you get married? I want everybody to answer this, and the women.
Let me just say that Raquel and I have seen each other on the struggle bus. Like waking up, my hair is like this, on like a day off. It's like, you've been in your pajamas all day and your hair is still like this and it's been 24 hours. You know what I mean? And I think on it, there's obviously a place like you don't want to just like totally give up or not give up. That's not the word. Like, you don't want to stop trying, right? You always want to look best for the person, but I think there is something sweet that I don't know. I like for us that it's like, we didn't comb our hair, we look ridiculous. And like you're still beautiful. You know what I mean? It's just something to spend a day at home like that and just look ridiculous for 24 hours and then you don't feel any less about the person the next day.
What if she looked like that for 3 months?
Like during
during COVID, you mean? Like
go with that a year.
Yeah. I mean, because that's what it was. We were stuck up in Michigan during that, and Michigan shut down. Like you couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole digression. I mean, the mental health of being stuck in the house all day. You stop caring, all of that. And,
we come in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
No, I think that goes back to what I was saying. It's like, you. And maybe that goes into like date days or something. But it's like I still want to look good for Raquel. I don't like try to completely give up now or stop caring. You know what I mean? Like, if I gained weight, it was because of stress, not because I stopped caring. But you know, I want to look. You know, I want to look good for Raquel as often as I can, but it's not to the point where, like, if I don't comb my hair one day, I'm worried about what she's thinking about me. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Like the security in that is like, you know, if I look like a bum, she still loves me and I still love her. And yeah.
Sandra, I'll come back to you, Raquel. But Sandra.
I was just thinking about like how much does it matter, or how heavily does your person's opinion about what you do with your hair or how you look, like how much weight does that play? And especially I just remember back in the day when I used to go to the salon, and the stylist would, when women asked for extreme haircuts, in particular, she would ask the lady, and what does your husband say? How does your husband feel about you cutting all of it? Or how, you know what I mean? And I was like, what? And she said, yes. She said, one husband to show up at her salon. The woman wanted to cut all her hair off. And so that's the service she provided. And she said that man scared her to death. And she said she would never cut a woman's hair again without making sure that her husband said it was okay. So, you know, we're talking about boundaries, and I just remember with myself in changing how and what I did with my hair over the years, I would always ask, you know, so what do you think about me no longer blowing out my hair? And so what do you think about this afro? And so what do you think about whatever? And it was a bit of a transition for him. He was not feeling initially when I stopped blowing my hair out. You know, because that girl would blow it and flat iron, and from behind, people thought I was Asian. And then when I stopped doing that, he was like, "Well, how long are you gonna not do this?" And I'm not going back, sir.
And next we will hear from Tommy. Go ahead, come on the screen, because you muted.
Yeah. It took me a minute to get used to that. But I always tell her, you know, it doesn't matter anymore. I'm good. I like what she's doing now, and if she wants to change it, we can. She was talking about doing something shorter. We can. Yes, we can. So, I mean, because ask her who does her hair right now. Tommy.
He does my retwist.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Now, when I first started my lock journey,
no.
He was not feeling, because I did a big chop. My daughter gave me a big chop in COVID, during COVID 2020. And he was not feeling those teeny little things. And, you know, and
it was a big change.
It was a big change.
It was a major change, you know.
It was, sweetheart. It was. And then as it grew out, and then, you know, and then every time when I'm like, I think I'm gonna cut my hair, and he was like, "What? I've grown to love your locks. I'll do them."
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay. So I love that.
That's cool.
Listen,
I can relate to that so much. That is yeah. I can relate to my whole story.
Yeah. How important is physical parents, Victor?
It's not important at all, to be honest.
Say more.
Oneida has a great saying with the girls. So the girls say to Oneida, "Mom, are you going to do your hair?" Or "Mom, are you going to put makeup on?" Oneida's comeback is, "I got my man." So you know, Oneida it's important to Onita for Onita. It's not important for me. Like Onita glams it up on these podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll come home and I'll be like, wait a minute, is this the same lady that was on the podcast that I'm seeing right now?
But it start first on date night.
Date night glams it up, right? I don't know if y'all ever seen the movie 5 Heartbeats. I stand up and I be like, every night I gotta prove my love because all these people around here staring at it because she's glammed up so much. But I know she likes that. And self-care is so important. So she takes those times to go and get massages and her hair done and her nails done, and she should. She does so much for our family, and if she feels that way, then now I wear my hair because my family says I can't cut it. I used to like to wear my hair very low, and we had VJ growing out of afro, so I said, hey, I want to see if so I grew it out, and I said, okay, I'm done with this. I'm gonna cut it off, and all the girls in Onita are like, no, don't cut it off, Dad. You look so much better now. So I keep it, but you know, I don't feel like it. I feel like if you're happy with it, I'm happy with it. That's kind of my approach. As far
like it, I love it.
Yes. Yes.
Onita, then Raquel.
What was the question?
Don't play with me, Onita.
Parents.
Take your name off that podcast.
To Victor's point too, yeah, I'm definitely more we in the beginning we were attracted to each other because we liked what we saw, right? We joke about the clothes, but there were certain clothes, especially a favorite pair of green jogging pants and this red Sears shirt that was one of his favorite go-tos. It would annoy the heck out of me because I'd be like, why are you wearing that? Like, we're going to Cheesecake Factory. What are you doing? He'd be like, because he had to wear business attire. You know, he had to wear business attire all week. So he's like, I want to be comfortable. And I'm like, okay, well, that wouldn't annoy me. So I even tried to donate it. I came back a week later. That day, he had that outfit on. And I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh my goodness. But I got it. It felt soft. I tried the pants on one day. They felt soft, the material. So I looked at it. I was like, I'm gonna go buy him another one, like a matching set that feels so good. But I was very cognizant though of where I would say I like the way I look. Being home with the kids a lot of times it'd be I wouldn't have necessarily bonded on, but hair pulled back and working, doing all that stuff. So getting out more, working, I started to do more. I would change up. To this point, he made me see me on the Zoom, and I'm dolled up, and he came home on and switched it back. But to this point, I wouldn't say that I'm being complacent or too comfortable. I do though make an effort because I'm cognizant of the fact that scientifically they're visually stimulated, but even more to a point than we are. So I do like to get dolled up when we go out or put stuff when we go to church. I make an effort to look good for him, and vice versa. I love it when he comes down and he intentionally dressed that day or whatever he does. I'm just like, I feel like I tell him, I'm like, I'm supposed to quote Biggie. Can I quote Biggie? But I was like, man, you look fine. Like, what? Rolex you just shot. Okay, I'm sorry. But once he's getting older, it's the things that maybe earlier on, there are things earlier on that were just about the physical that made me attracted to him. But now it's about the heart, the mind, that he does and says that just makes him way more handsome to me each and every day. And then for us both, it's not even as far as what we say, the other physical. It's, hey, babe, are you feeling good with your health? Like, there's no pressure. And I'm telling you, we've been around people where there's pressure. The wife has to have matching underwear and bra. It has to be. The husband verbalizes, no, she can't cut her hair. Or, yes, her hair must be perm. Or she can't wear a weave. Like, we've heard added things people say that I'm just like, wow, that's a lot of pressure that are not about the core values of a woman, of the person. But never had that pressure, and I don't put it on him. But we do say to each other as we're getting older, though, are you feeling your healthiest? I want to make sure you feel your healthiest, whether it's mind, body, and spirit. It's never like a pressure of, I want you to be, a size 8 and all this other stuff. We did not have those struggles with each other. We're talking about that. And actually, for some reason, when I'm pregnant is when he gets his most handsies on me. Sandra, I don't know if you experienced that with Tommy. But like when I'm pregnant, it's just like I don't know what extra pheromones I'm giving off, Ebony. Like, boy, what is happening here? Oh my God.
True story, sis. True story.
It's the thing. It's the thing. It's the thing.
It's the thing. So where some people may feel like, oh my gosh, I'm fat and ugly. I just be like, baby, I'm over here looking like Beyonce and Halle Berry. All in one.
I love it. I love it.
So I'll disagree with you.
Oh, what?
There are some pressures.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, bringing in 32 and 34 waist skinny jeans, those are some pressures. Then having to wear those, and I didn't mind it until I wore it to the barbershop one day, and I happened to leave something in the barbershop, so I had to go back in, and the whole barbershop was laughing. And then when I walked back in, they stopped, and I was like, y'all laughing at these jeans, ain't y'all? I'm not wearing these jeans no more.
Wow. He did some good work at losing weight, so I went and bought new jeans. I didn't realize they were making them all skinny. Now, you know, we'll get the skinny jeans, but for the men too, they look good on you.
No, they didn't.
Raquel. That's funny.
So basically, like I appreciate Ben, and that's like one thing that I really love about him is that because like my hair is naturally like curly wavy, and like I straighten it mainly because it's easier to get up out of bed in the morning and just leave the door. Mm-hmm. And also because I've been doing it for most of my life, and so I don't really know how to take care of my curly hair. But there are days that I'm like too lazy to straighten my hair, so I will leave it curly, you know. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, Ben would be like, "Oh, I like your curly hair today. It looks beautiful. Nice change," you know. And so I appreciate that because like because I don't really know how to do anything with my curly hair, and he comes and compliments me, and you know, it just makes me like, oh, okay, well, thanks. I feel extra here, you know. Okay. So like, and it's like I think Juanita said like, yeah, I will do like these small stuff. Well, I'll just go do my nails. I typically dye my hair like once every 5 years because it's too much. It's like 6 hours for me, and that's like too much. So even though like in a way we kind of don't really tell each other like, oh man, you should go do this, you should go do that, we'll do it on our own. But like no matter the small little stuff that we do, we will always compliment each other. But we don't really like, yeah, I guess we just don't really expect each other to like, hey man, you're looking scraggly, you should go. But
you said that to me
during COVID. Yeah, I offered my barber skills to cut his hair, and he said
I can't figure out so long because all the barbers
I
were
could have
closed.
literally done like French braids on him.
It was
that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Okay. But yeah, like I feel like these small little stuff, like I want to look my best, my prettiest for my husband, even though I feel like there was a change from when like I was dating than when I was engaged to now. It's like I can see before I would have makeup on every single day, no matter where I go, makeup on. But then once I got married, it's like I don't need to have makeup on. And I will wake up like he sees me without makeup and he's like, wow, like I love your face without makeup. So there's certain stuff that like as throughout the years go by, you kind of start slacking a little, but at the same time you kind of don't, because I don't know, I like it. I love dressing up. I'm a girly girl. I love wearing dresses. So every Saturday, like I will always have something nice on because that's how it makes me feel happy. And so we will compliment each other. Like I love it when he's wearing his nice suit to church too. So I feel like we try our best to look the best that we can for each other.
Yeah.
Anita said something too that, like, I thought that's what Raquel was gonna say, but she I always joke around, like, well, not joke because it's true. Like, if I gain weight for whatever reason, the way my body is, it's always, you could always trace it back to like stress, right? So like, you know, if your wife or your husband comes up to you and is like, yo, like, what's good with you? Why can't you fit into anything? That could shatter like you're already like self-confidence. But when she like, if she never says it like that, by the way, so like she's not, if she asks me, it is because she's in the back of her mind like, you're not healthy right now. You know, not because of what you're eating, it's because of like, you know, stuff that's going on. Like, so I don't know if she does, which she doesn't really often, but if she knows, like visually, she could see that something up here is going on.
Yeah.
So yeah. I appreciate that.
Well, all of your answers were, you know, great, but it's so interesting that when you are listening to other voices and other conversations, you know, we hear all the time, men are visual, men are visual, men are visual. Like I'm just like, what does that mean? We all are visual if we have eyes that see. Like, what does that mean? But there's like, in that book for women only, it talks about how, you know, most men in the survey, when asked about, you know, physical appearance, and they were like, one thing that our wives don't know or that we haven't told them is that it really matters to us that they look the way kind of like they did when we met them, or they keep up, or at least they're making the effort to keep up their body and their dressing and all of that the way that when we met them. And so I'm sure no one's saying, yeah, please, let's go look like a slug. But the way that you all responded, I almost feel that it's influenced by your faith and how you, and it's like, it's not just, of course, no, you know, you want your spouse to look nice and stuff, but that's not driving the relationship or your connection to them. So I think that speaks a lot to, and I mean, a lot of these people were Christians as well, in the survey. So I'm not saying if you're a Christian, you shouldn't care about this, but I kind of thought I might expected a little bit of a different answer, but knowing you all, maybe not so much. But I want to lead into something that a couple of people mentioned, and that's health. And I want to talk about managing health crises, mental, physical, emotional crises that come after, or even disabilities that might happen after. I don't know if any of you have had experience with that, and how do you manage that? Because this is not the same person physically, emotionally, mentally that you married with people who might have dementia. And this can come from other people's experience too, as you share with us. But how do you manage that when your person isn't healthy the way that they were when you first married them? Sandra.
I'm gonna speak from, you know, we're the older folks. And so, and that made me think of, I think one of our biggest recurring disagreements, or and sometimes maybe even argument, is about health because of eating habits, because of my concern for Tommy being healthy, because obesity runs in his family, and young family members, his uncle and this one and that one, have died, you know, with health issues because of weight, right? And so, and then also he had quadruple bypass. And that was like horrifying. I just remember thinking, I guess he was like 44.
Wow.
And my dad died at 43 from pancreatic cancer. So when Tommy was dealing with the whole heart thing, and it kind of like happened so quickly, man, that was one of the most frightening times of my life. And me and God had it out. I was like, listen, I'm not fitting to be a widow at 43. You know, I was telling God, I'm not raising these children on my own, because, you know. And so when we got through that, it was like, listen, you got to do some things differently. I know you are genetically predisposed, like all of your people are heavy people, all of them. And that's okay if you're healthy. You understand what I'm saying? Because like, everybody's not an 8,
right,
or a whatever, 32 waist, whatever. But I need to know you are eating well, and I'm preparing food for you to eat well. And then, you know, you on what you think is your deathbed, and you saying you've been eating, what's that restaurant? Not Lucia. So I can't think of the name of the restaurant, you know, 3 or 4 times a week. And so that was an ongoing argument and confusion in the house. And so, but that was a scary time. He went from, you know, being this in the gym all the time, in the gym, because he is and still is to this day. He is a gym rat, is what we call it, because he is in that gym, and his cardiologist said him being in the gym is what saved his life, and he felt like because he was in the gym every day, he could eat whatever he wanted. But the cardiologist said that he had the heart of a 25-year-old, but the arteries of a, you know, someone sick because of his eating habits, you know. So he had quadruple bypass, and he had initially it was 33 arteries, 99% blocked, and when they opened him up, it was 4. And he was not supposed to live. You hear me? He was not supposed to be here.
Wow.
And so, so that was a huge wake-up call for him for a long time. And then he went back to his poor choices, right? Still in the gym, but poor choices. And so, and then he had to have a hip replaced. He said hip replacement. You know, we getting up there. And so, I'm telling you, God is good. So you know, yeah. So it's been challenging because you really do think about this sickness and in health, right?
Right.
Because you are nursing you back to health, and by God's grace, He is back to optimum health. But scary times, challenging times. And so I'm very much concerned on a regular, and I try to curb it sometimes because I'm not trying to upset him, offend him, you know, or nag him to death. But you know, he has said to me once a few years ago, you know, you can't make me make these choices. I've got to do this. You can't make me. And so, you know, he would almost eat like he was taunting me, and I'm gonna eat this. And then, you know, and I'm just like, dude, I'm trying to look out for you. What's wrong? So, you know, we had to come to a pineapple. Don't talk about this anymore. You know, and so I do much better. Much better. I'm not keep perfect. I don't completely
relate to that.
Yeah. So. Health is important. Take care of your mate.
Yeah. Sure. I want to add to the health thing too. You also said mental health as well. Two things. One point, I was doing so much with work, ministry, home, and everything else. Victor had to be like, "Oh, you need to give something up." And typically, usually, it's the first thing is like, you need to give up that ministry, in which I'd be like, "No, I must always, until Jesus come, I have to do ministry." He'd be like, "Okay, well, you gotta let something else go." And I would always fight tooth and nail until I was doing so much I got sick. Your body, if you don't slow down, your body will shut you down.
That's right.
And then you're not good to anybody. So trying to be a better listener, like Raquel said, Raquel held the mirror up to him, like, look, because I had thyroid cancer before. I don't have a thyroid or parathyroid. I have to take a pill every morning for my thyroid, and I have to take calcium 3 times a day because my body just depletes it all day. Which got to the point one time because I wasn't eating, because I have to take it with food. But I'm running, coffee here, coffee there, not eating. Hadn't paid attention to the fact I hadn't been taking it until I started to feel my arms tingling all over my legs and all of that. I just happened to be home and called the doctor on call, just like, this is happening. I'm not sure what's happening. She was like, you need to get to ER. Your heart's about to shut down. You either have a seizure or your heart can stop. And I was like, okay, so, you know, it's not that sometimes you're put in the hospital, you like wake up and go, let me listen to this person telling me to slow down and do what I need to do. And that was scary for me and my family because when I'm too young, I was young. Sydney was an infant. And so here I was in the cath lab where everybody else around me was senior citizens, but I'm here being monitored with this hot monitor while they're giving me all of these electrolytes through an IV. And I just like, Lord, what in the world? Because I'm thinking, y'all, it's a small, tiny pill, small, tiny thyroid pill that's regulating all these hormones. But that too, by not taking it, my hair will fall out, my nails are brittle, all these other things were happening because I was not making my health a priority. Now, kids have perfect lunch. He had lunch, dinner was done, house was clean, but I still wasn't making me a priority. Because again, part of my love language is acts of service, but you got to remember to serve yourself too. Like I got to take me. And these are things that we were saying, like, babe, some things you need to shut out. And so for those two who are in ministry and you're constantly, particularly even pastors, you're constantly making the church and everybody in the church and everything else first, you got to take care of home too and take care of yourself. So if that means you have to be in a sabbatical or take a break off for a year, it'll get done. It's not saying maybe you do ministry some other ways, but I had to start saying no to some things in order to, because I got to be here. And so I can't keep pouring and then my cup is empty and I have nothing to pull from. The other health I want to speak to was the mental, is recognizing that, hey, we hit the glass ceiling on a lot of things, but then realizing, when we talked about this earlier, I honestly thought I'm very strong. I know I'm loved. I didn't think I still had issues with abandonment until I started to, some things came out and I started to go down this journey of my mental health and healing from things and unresolved trauma. And it's another conversation we had to tell with the kids too. Every Thursday night, I meet with the trauma coach and a group of women from different walks of life. I think all of them are believers that meet, and there's discussions and there's prayers and there's work that we do, like we talked about. That's when we did the apology style quiz, and then we did attachment style quiz, and we start delving into that and not recognizing certain situations in life, how my subconscious little girl in me I was reacting in the present from that place and not from the real woman that I fully thought I was. And so learning to deal with some of those things, it was a transition because there were moments where some things hit you harder than you think it did. You thought you were over, it just was suppressed for years. And to where I was having to have conversations with him and say, because he right away be like, if you're gonna come out there crying and you ain't no good, then maybe you shouldn't be in the group. And I'm like, no, and so having this hard conversation that sometimes it gets ugly. Yeah, better, like having to come out. And he has been very supportive of respecting that. Like he keeps the kids away. It's like, this is mom time, let her do that. She needs to go do that. And of course he told, I think on the men's one, that's when I started sending him more quotes and podcasts and things too, because I want to be my healthiest self too. And I want that for him as well, because we had some similar background things in our upbringing. And I recognize too that there's places that God's leading us to where he's even at his position, that this unresolved childhood stuff needs to also be dealt with, or it's going to come out in different environments that can sabotage things. Yes. So that's very important. I think it's important for each spouse to be intentional about their mental health. I've encouraged him to go play golf. That's a de-stressor for him. Or let's go out and do things just for him that he can have whatever that thing is. And so that's my piece on health.
Cool. I think that's really important, everything that you shared, and just awareness is certainly very important. It's easier to be aware of our lack of physical health than our lack of mental health and emotional health, because it's so easy to ignore that and just say, oh, I'm tired, or I'm busy, or I'm whatever, I'm overworked. And when you are so deep in that even a vacation is not relaxing to you, it's like, there might be something more going on here. Raquel, Ben, any want to share that?
We've been blessed, like we haven't had a major health scare, right? So I praise God for that. I have diabetes. It runs on my mom's side of the family, so it's something that I always have to be careful of. So, you know, Victor was talking about it. If there's a pie, I eat it. Same, brother. Like self-control for me, and Raquel tries to keep me accountable. But our thing was more like the mental health, and I've alluded to it, and like it's a whole digression, and this really isn't the place, but like I have never in my life, if I could have described myself, leading up my whole life, like I would have described myself as content. I'm like super easy to please, you know what I mean? Like I'm flexible, and so serious like mental health struggles were never a thing. Like I never, depression. No, I mean everybody has a bad day, but like I bounce back. Anxiety, stress, but you bounce back. But like, I was pastoring, and basically the only thing that changed in my life when all this stuff started was that I started to pastor, and it broke me. Like just it was really, really bad. It's so interesting. It's almost like you're watching yourself from like the outside, like you're watching yourself from the third person, and it's like get up and do something. Stop like laying around all day. Like what's going on? That's not who you are. But I just you just feel like stuck, and I would feel a lot of like guilt and shame. I was like, this isn't fair to Raquel. This is not who she married. This is not what she signed up for. You know what I mean? And I tried, I tried. Lorraine knows. And I think Sherry Lynn, if she's still watching, she knows too. They know I tried. I reached out. I asked my conference for help, and they told me no. I asked for a change. They told me to get lost, basically. And just feeling incredibly stuck. And Victor and Anita said something about like, the kids want you to, they want you to be Superman, right? And that was something that like I used to just like tear up talking to Raquel about. I was like, why would our kids ever want to go to church? I don't want to go to church. Why would they want to do that? And I was so worried about I was so worried about that. I was like, if I stay, I feel like I run the risk of like losing my faith altogether. And I asked for help. They told me to get lost. And I just had to finally be like, this isn't fair to Raquel. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to my kids. Like I have autonomy. You know what I mean? Like I have autonomy. I don't have to stay.
That's right.
I asked them to stay and they said no. So, okay. But I don't know. I couldn't have done that without Raquel because I feel like I would have been too scared, because and Victor was talking to me about it last time. I always get worried about the bills. I'm like, I can't leave. You know what I mean? Like we need. I don't know. Raquel was just in like. I don't know, this whole last year of our life, like she's just been in top form, like supportive and being like, we're gonna be fine, and like, I mean, just days where I'm like crying into her shoulder, and I don't feel like I walk away from that feeling like any less of a man. Like, amen. So she,
come on, help me, amen.
Yes,
girl.
And I know that I would do the same for her. You know what I mean? So I think for me, it's and maybe now and Sandra, I don't think, I hope I'm not putting like words in your mouth. Maybe this is what you were getting at, where it's like, man, there was frustration because it's like, your husband, like he has the autonomy to eat better, but he's maybe in that moment choosing not to. It's like I had autonomy, and I finally was like, for our marriage, like I need to do this. For our future kids, like I need to do this. even though I feel like it's a super scary thing to do. Like the health has to come first, because like I choose the church and to bear the cross, and I lose my wife and my kids don't want to talk.
Right.
Sir.
You know, so
yeah.
No, yeah, I don't know. I just for my mental health, I had to finally recognize, just to sum it up, I had to recognize like I have autonomy.
And choose Christ, not the church.
Yes.
Right.
Choose Christ.
Christ, not the church.
Yeah. I have autonomy, and I gotta use it to benefit our marriage, because like Raquel's in top form right now, but she's gonna get burned out with this version of me. You know what I mean? That's not fair.
Yeah.
But that's amazing self-awareness, though.
Yes,
it is.
Yeah. And so like what Juanita was saying, because I had to take care of him, I forgot to take care of me.
Yeah.
And so once January came on, January this year, I started off the year with kidney stones. And so it kind of just went
and like
downhill
heart
from
palpitation
there.
and
so yeah, it went
issues.
kidney stones, and I ended up in the ER for something else, and I ended up in the ER for another thing. And so like this whole year, like I had a whole heart monitor on my chest. I had to do an EKG echo because of all the stress and anxiety that like I saw him go through. It started latching on to me, and then it started building up to even like more stuff on top of that. So it's like, yes, I was taking care of him, but then I totally forgot that I had to take care about me too. And so we both went downhill together. But then, eventually, after we left pastoring, we had to take time to heal ourselves.
Yeah.
Now we're like in that healing journey, in that healing process. And like one thing that we try to do every single day. So like by the time I get home around like 5:30, 6-ish, 6:30, 7:30, we always try to do like our walk. So we walk around the neighborhood 30 minutes or more. And sometimes we do like a whole other lap, and like we just talk. We just talk, how was your day? Like, what are we going to do about this? And like finances, this, And so even though, we're on our healing process, but like we still try to take care of each other. The biggest thing, because we've just been through so much, and and we will still continue taking care of each other, making sure that we are both healthy, because we're still in that healing process.
That's excellent.
That's beautiful.
That is so great, because I think that it's a lot of people don't really like you can't really grasp better, worse, richer, poorer, sickness and health until you in the trenches. Because a lot of times you marry and it's like, it's, things are pretty good financially, and we're going to talk about finances next. I think Renee's going to help us go to that question. And, your health is good, and, y'all are lovey-dovey. It's all, and then it's just like, bam, life hits, and you have no clue what life is going to look like, and now it's like, oh, you just wanted richer, better, healthier. You want worse, poorer, sick, So now it's like navigating those things and learn and being reminded by people like you all in this conversations that we've had that, poorer, sicker, worse happens, but the covenant is what keeps you. Not even the love, because a lot of people love each other, but when you have a covenant that says that's not this us till we die, whatever comes, then that covenant is what keeps us. Then I think that's a different perspective. Renee, you're muted.
Muted, boo.
Okay. So but we're talking about the other sides of the vows, right? And right now we're just talking about finances. So let's go into that, right? So if we're talking about the poorer side, you guys already touched on some of these topics in previous episodes, right? Victor was giving the advice to Ben, which is not making your, not over focusing or emphasizing the paying back of bills. You're always going to be doing that. But I don't want to try to recap what anybody said about the finances. I would like for you guys to do that. What kind of tips would you guys give when it comes to those poorer moments in your relationship? Like when, Ben, you're trying to go to Andrews and you guys are dealing with all of the things around needing the snow tires and, you wanting to take that cruise and all these different things that come up, and you look at those finances and you're like, whatever are we going to do? Also, one more thing I wanted to say. I was listening to a power couple in the gospel industry, and they were talking about their finances and things like that. And I remember the guy saying, it took me 8 years to share my finances with her, like to get a joint account. Like it took that long for them to kind of see where they both stood when it came to finances. And so I guess there was like a cup of trust that, or a tank of trust that needed to be filled before he decided to, go ahead on and make that merge with her. So how do you guys address that in your relationship?
Let's start with Tommy. Where's Tommy? Is he here?
He's driving.
Oh, okay.
He's driving, but yeah.
All right. Well,
but
his
just
representative.
His better half. We have a joint. We joint. We put money together. He puts the bigger part because he, even in his retirement was making more. So joint, and then I have my own little, so I don't have to ask him for everything. Every single.
Did you guys start out that way?
Let me see. No, I think I think I got tired of asking him for every little thing because he felt like, he was older and had been out in the world and lived and whatever. And he was handling the finances and paying the bills. And so like I would, work a job. And if I didn't like, I had to give a job a year to see if I really liked it. But if I wasn't happy there, it was okay for me to say, this isn't for me. And we were okay because he was doing the finances. Like, and I was doing, the house and the children, and one of our children was sick, so I didn't work for a while. And so he always did the finances. And then when I went back to work, I wanted to contribute in that way also. And so that's just how it was. So it was like, however you want to pitch in, do that. And so that's been.
Okay.
So coming into the marriage early on, I don't even know if I really kept money in my bank account ever because I wasn't making much. So, but my mom used to always say, you got to keep I'll say rainy day account, but that's not what she called it. She called it your shoot account. Things can happen. She's like, things happen. Keep a little account on the side or whatever. And I know initially, even early in our marriage, he didn't understand why. He's like, this is one house. Everything goes into the pot. I'm getting on the bill, so I can pay all the bills. And I was like, I hear you. But I mean, that was just not a concept of I didn't grow up in the house with that concept of discussing what I was going to go buy and purchase. I was just like, I'm finally making my own money. I'm out the house. I'm going to do what I want, when I want, what I want. And he was like, okay, here are the bills. Let's just look at it like this. Here are all the bills. Here's all the bills. Your money going to Macy's and everything else. And where's it, saving for a rainy day. So it was definitely initially an adjustment for me. I would say more than him because he already made up in his mind. He was not going to be broke. He was going to save and maintain. I knew coming into the marriage, he's going to be a provider. We'd already discussed that. And I grew up, saw my dad doing that. My mom worked off and on when we were younger, but my dad paid, provided for everything she needed. So we kind of came in with that mindset, I guess expectation a little bit, but will say there was times where, especially when we decided for me to be home with the kids, just because one, if it didn't financially make good sense because I'd have been spending so much money on daycare. I literally just would have been working to pay daycare. So we're tight at times, but God always provided. We would still have Sabbath lunch. People still be over, taking place to go and everything. Not knowing sometimes he'd be like, "Where did you get that from?" Like pulling this and that together. And that was just God provided each time. And so making it a point too that I know he provided because we were being faithful in our tithe and offer more so often we give locally. And so I know God provided because of that. But I would say later on too, as I begin to work more, you still have the main joint account, but I still have like a separate. You have another account too. Well, that's really for saving. You show your check. My name is not on that one. Yes. Why are you smiling?
My turn to answer.
Okay. Anyway, we'll be finished.
Yes, you can go next.
What he got the new job at that credit union. He had to open an account when you're an employee there. So he opened that account. I have this little credit union one over here too, but the majority is at one bank for the bills per se. And then we have the other accounts, and then the kids all have savings and all of that. But I would say earlier on in the marriage, though, it was more of a struggle for me having to, I guess I want to say trust game, but let him lead with that headship and that. Women in my family were very strong-headed women, did everything. And so I'd just be like, it just took me a while to get there. But then I saw the benefits. I just saw I guess God dealt with me too in trusting that this is my son. This is the man I put you with. He not only knows this stuff, Onita, this is what he does for a living. And it's like I said, I never not trusted him providing. I just had to start being more submissive in this area too, of understanding, one, saving more, but two, understanding that he's going to handle this better than you are. On the flip side, though, he would stress about paying everything to the point where he would just take the whole check and pay everything. And I'd be like, no. What if there's an emergency? So we kind of balanced out with that too. And just I saw God's faithfulness and blessing us staying faithful with our giving, blessing to the point where we were able to better save. It wasn't just about paying the bills and then working hard. And then so when we try to play hard. Actually, we're going on a vacation tomorrow. So
all right, let's hear Victor's side of that.
So this topic is the most stressful topic of my life. I mean, as I shared, when I was a kid, we were in homeless shelter, and I said that would never happen. God has blessed us so much because when we talk about boundaries, a budget is a boundary. To it. We have never had a budget. We go to the store, we see something we like, we buy it. We go in the house, we build it. We put every option. It's like, why you got that option? Oh, I saw it on ACTV, and I think we need it. So, but in my 20s, to go back to Ben, my sole focus was I'm not going back to a shelter. Now, maybe there's no shot if you go, like if you miss, if I'm 2 days late, I'm gonna end up in a shelter, right? So I was scarred and triggered so much by that everything in life was that focus. And I couldn't explain that to Onita enough because Onita also was like, freedom. I don't have all those responsibilities that I used to have. And the money split over 7 people just didn't go very far. So I hear your pain, honey, but I'm doing my own thing. And doing my own thing wasn't very good in my mindset of logical 1 + 1 is 2 always. So I'm going to take that 2 and I'm going to pay all the bills. But I got to a point, and I'll tell you, Ben, where it shifted for me. I was so stressed out that I called Onita yelling and fussing at her about these purchases she had from Styles Be Right. Right. So I had passed Styles Be Right every day.
Twice a day.
Going and coming. And never noticed it until it was in Bank of America saying Styles Be Right. And I was like, Onita, I've told you time after time again, we don't have this money to be spending. And she was like, Styles Be Right. I don't know no Styles Be Right. So we happened to be driving one day. and we're at the red light, and we happen to look over, and it's a gas station called Stylesby Light. And I said, you know what? That's when I said, Onita, you take over handling the bills. I'm done with it because it's going to send me to an early grave because I'm stressing too much. And since then, you know, I started to do more in church other than treasury. I did Bible study. We did street ministries, church repairs. And then I started to see God provide better jobs. So he's like, I'm gonna send you to Rhode Island. You may not be able to find Rhode Island on a map, but I'm gonna send you up there. And from a church standpoint, I really grew from that standpoint. So I look back at it and I said, he didn't send me to Rhode Island for the job that took me up there. He sent me to become the treasurer and all those relationship ministers at that church. Then all of a sudden we came back to Virginia, you know, another job that's paying me more, and we give more, but we also are putting more time into the church side of it. So, you know, Ben, I think you're doing all the right things. That's what I said. Don't necessarily stress about that type of stuff because the bills are always going to be there, but you have to build your skill sets that you'll actually earn more so that you can do what you want. Yeah. Because, you know, my kids look forward to vacations, and I don't want to be the type of dad that puts in their mind you can't do anything. Like I was kind of brought up. It wasn't told to me, but the situations that I was in told me you had to. There was no in between. You pay all your bills, and you'll have a roof over your head. If you don't pay your bills, you'll be under somebody else's roof that you have to go outside, and hopefully you get a bed every day. And at the time, it was 5 of us. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever been to a shelter. You don't really see 5 beds together a lot. You know, it's kind of 1, 2, 3. And so it definitely something that, you know, I was 10 years old, so almost 40 years ago, that still lives with me today. And I still make some of my decisions based on that situation. So, you know, what I'm saying is, you know, pray a lot about it, which I'm sure you do. But ask God for the maturing of how you view the situation. Don't just say, hey, Lord, give me a job that's going to help me pay those bills. Because if you don't necessarily understand what the issue is, you're not going to be asking for the right solution. You're just going to be asking for a right now solution versus a long-term solution. So, you know, that's my thing. Like, you know, finances is always gets me riled up. And I think that's probably the only thing that Onita and I, you talked about immovable situations. That was very, like, we were on different pages and we might have been different books. Because, you know, I just felt like example, when we bought our first house out by Virginia Center Commons, Onita, we walked in to put curtains up because he's like, hey, we ain't gonna just have our windows all not covered. And Onita walked in saying, at our next house, and I was like, we're just walking in the door of this house. But you know, I really feel like one thing that I will go to my grave knowing I was a provider, and that's what we talked about early on in our relationship. I want to be a provider, and I want to, whether we have no kids or a house full of kids, I always be known as a provider. And I, you know, God has blessed me to do that.
That's right, Tommy.
They switched the bills to me. I was like, what? Turn them lights off. Okay, what we doing? No, what we're doing is we're going to Lidl, we're going to Aldi's, we're eating in. No, we're not eating out. We're doing, like, we will have pizza on Saturdays. Okay, so it shifted my perspective too when I start, because I'm good at my math now, percentages and addition. I got you now. Going to geometry, I don't have you. But when I started to see what was coming in and how much was going out, it shifted my perspective as well. And how can, because again, even as we're resourceful, I can make $1 out of 15 cents. So I grew up being able to do that. It was going, you've made this $1 now, don't dwindle it down. Right. That part of it. And another big thing for us that was finances was, and I think I said this before, we always had people calling us too. And so a lot of times I was helping people behind his back, not coming to him first about it, which would also impact the house. So that was, again, a boundary that had to be set with me, with my outside family. Right. But also I had to start saying, I have to talk to Victor about it. If some of them got attitudes, they'd be like, oh my gosh, why you got to talk to him about it? You're your own woman. Like, he don't run you. Like, this is my husband. I'm going to talk to him about it. So most of the time, in their mind, they'd be like, it's a no. And it wouldn't even be a no. Sometimes he'd be the one tripling what they asked for. He'd be saying, you know what, we prayed about it. Let's, he'd do more. But it was me having to, again, honor him in that way too, saying, babe, it was a shift. It was a mind shift. I pray daily for a renewed mind. My mind had to be renewed and saying, hey, let's talk about this. This is what's come about. And it definitely stopped the call. A lot of the calls stopped completely. Praise God. But it also helped strengthen the trust from him to me in that area when it came to the finances, that he knows that I'm on the same page with him now with perspective of what we're spending, not spending, how we're saving, how we're moving, and how we're also giving outside of that.
Unless it's for the kids, because she'll come in with 5 bags and she'll be like, oh, that's for the kids. And then VJ will take something out like, that's not for the kids.
Here's the thing. He would say, babe, we're on the month, we're this month, we're in a budget, we can't really buy nothing. I go, fine. And then one of the girls would walk up, this when they were younger, not now. One would walk up and like, Dad, I really wanted such and such. He'd be like, oh, go ahead, go right ahead and buy it. And I'm like, you just said.
You said you were on the budget, not them.
Right, it was me, not the kids. I digress. I'll let somebody else go.
Ben and Raquel, y'all have anything to add to that? We're gonna start to wind down here.
We don't have too much to say, other than we have access to each other's account. Like we don't share a card, but like if she needs $50, like she just takes it, or now it's flipped. If I need money, it's all in the open there. Not keeping anything from each other, but we don't share a card, So, but they're together. That's it.
But one thing I do have to say is that ever since the first day of our marriage, we've always been struggling, but God would always provide for us somehow.
Yes.
We even if we needed that one little extra $100, it would somehow just show up. Yeah. So even though we've always been broke, we've always been able to make it by. So.
Yeah, the electricity never got shut off. We never didn't So we're blessed.
Amen.
Amen.
That. I'm hearing the same thing with the finances that I heard last week. There's no one thing on the inside of you guys' marriages that is one dimensional. Because even right here, when we're talking about the finances, and last week we were talking about the bonding, the intimacy and the bonding, or whatever. And I was saying I hear all these different things. Just like right now, when you guys are talking about the finances, it's the same thing. It's the communication, it's the partnership, it's the budgeting, it's the boundaries. There's so many things that play into every little aspect of of you all's relationship. And I just think that's so amazing, because all of these things continue to bond you guys together, because these are not just facets of the relationship, but these are all of the things that you guys have to go through together. So again, when we're talking about somebody else being your best friend, I think was it Raquel or somebody was saying, how can we not be best friends? Sandra, maybe you said it. How can we not, with all that we go through, all that we experience together? Yeah.
There's no way. There's no way. Mm-hmm. You don't share all of this with anybody else.
Right.
Everything. You don't share all of that with them.
I do think that's interesting, because there are a lot of people who say, yeah, my spouse is my best friend. But there are a lot of people who say, no, she's not, or he's not, particularly men. They're like, I'm not best friend. She's like a friend, and we love each other, and we're a great relationship. But my best friend is such and such. And so we're not going to go on that whole thing, but I just think that the way that you all have, and I've always thought that too, but in the sense of, why would you not be best friends with this person? I think friendship is a great place for a relationship to even blossom. But I think that I love the fact that you all have, and repeatedly said it throughout the 3 episodes, that there is that bond is not just marriage, it's not just covenant, it's not just sex, it's a friendship. That is my best friend. And when even as before you get married, you have a best friend. You share most of your stuff with them. With someone that you're married to, it's like, oh, now you share even more with them. So I'm really blessed by that. Who was somebody going to say something? Henry says, good point, Renee. It's not about which option you choose. It's about coming to agreement on what's best for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we say it all the time. What works for your household? What works for your household?
Yeah, that's right.
Because, go ahead, Renee. I mean, Ebony.
I was just going to say there's not a one size fits all. Every couple is different, and like Michael and I, we have some friends who are like, we absolutely cannot have joint accounts. Like we have different philosophies on finances. We have different philosophies, all the things, but we've always been like joint account, because we felt like that separation of money would be divisive. And so, we never went that route, but to Henry's point, like you gotta have that conversation and make sure you're figuring out what's best for your household.
Yeah, I've always thought that it's interesting to me that people are so willing to share their private parts with people, but not share their bank card.
Come on.
All righty.
Divorce. What's the biggest thing that
the biggest factor? Divorce. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's finance.
And so, I just find it interesting, and I, for me, I'm like, and not even just with somebody they married to, just with anybody for some people. But then, when you start talking money, you're just like, I'm not letting him. Are you kidding me? I'm like, yo, you can make more money. You can't make more purity. I mean, whatever. So, like, you can't. I mean, there's a whole lot that goes. So I always found that interesting. But I think that many people, even amongst you all, it's like, oh yeah, we share, but even how you share is differently. But some people don't share at all. It's like, there's a whole movement of especially among men that's called the 50-50 movement, where it's like the wife, not just girlfriend, not just on a date, but the wife has to pay 50% of the bills and the husband pays 50% of the bills. And they're like, that's the way I think, and that's the way it's going to be. I shouldn't have to pay all. And then there's another, group of men who are just like, no, you're supposed to be responsible. But just that whole thing around finances is just interesting, because it's like, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
Yes.
It feels like our heart is so focused on the money, but not on the other things that God has given more value to, like the actual person. So,
and it's just, there's a control factor in there too, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. and I also, I was going to say to Onita's point, that a lot of times that comes from some traumas that we haven't really addressed around money. Like Victor said, I mean, I used to run a homeless shelter, so I understand. I saw the kids and the families that came in, so I can't imagine that feeling. And so when we don't deal with the stuff that actually comes from our past and the things that we bring with us, then we do make decisions sometimes not based on logic, but based on trauma. And when we do that, it can be disruptive in a different way. Because if your partner's like, no, we can share, and you're just like, no, I don't, I'm gonna have mine and you pay that and I'll pay. And you kind of feel almost like they don't trust you, but their stuff is about their stuff that they haven't maybe even identified, and that's triggering that. All right, so let's talk about two more things. I want to talk about, what does submission look like in 2023? Anybody who wants to answer that can jump right in.
Same thing it looked like in 1988.
Okay, well, what did it look like then?
Again, my growing up, I had what I saw, and knowing that what I saw was not what I wanted.
Okay.
And being with someone that was older and just kind of swept me off my feet, and I trusted all the things that I felt early on in the beginning. So I was happy to let him take the lead and have my own opinions, but it was like, okay, you have the helm. You do this. Until after probably, I guess, about 15 years. And that's when when I came into the knowledge of the Sabbath, and the Lord started sharing things and showing me things in His Word, and we were very active together in the church where we were, and so that's when I had to say, "Hey, you're the head of the house, but God is the head of my life, and I've got to make a." And so up until that point, and then God worked all that out in a big way. Yeah, but let me tell you, those were some hard days and nights, my friends, because Friday would come, and something would happen to my sweet husband. Something would happen to him. You know, he was fine all week, and then Friday came, and it was like, well, got to do things a little differently, and he was like, what? So it took some time, but you know, I waited on the Lord, and He did.
And so let me dig a little deeper there, because I know y'all want to go to sleep. So do I, but we just gonna go ahead and finish this out, and we setting some people free.
Amen.
So there are people who are married to someone. There are women, because people ain't submitting. We know submit one to another. We get it, but we talking about the later part of Ephesians, where it says wives to the husband. There are women who are married to men who are not believers, and they may be struggling with how to submit to someone who is not submitted to God. Pastor Snell, W. Snell from Oakwood University, he was preaching one Sabbath, and he said, he was preaching to the singles, I believe, and he said that it's bad enough when the blind lead the blind, but when the blind tries to lead the seeing, we got a problem.
Come on now.
He coming with something there.
Come on now.
Because when you see what God is trying to do, when you see the direction that God is leading, but your husband doesn't see that and he's going in a totally different direction, how do you submit to that? You see the ditch. You just like, nah, that's a ditch right there. They're like, So maybe talk about that, Sandra, or anyone else. Talk about that. I mean, I that's not your situation, but you've seen I'm sure you've seen other relationships that might be like that. So talk about that, because when we say submission and we're comfortable. We've done a whole episode on submission, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that. But we say, we let him lead and he's the head, whatever. It's like when it's time to make a decision, what happens when the seeing is with the blind? What happens? Talk to me, somebody. Tell me something.
I remember being at church years ago. It was actually at Ephesus. It was a guest preacher, and he specifically was speaking to women because a lot. Well, we go in churches most time it's mostly women, and there are women who I've seen at church for years. I didn't know they were married until there was some type of event, and their husband may have come or they came to a funeral or something. It was like didn't know they were married for years. And how he put it was he was saying to still honor your husband, but he said also some of you are sitting here mad your husband won't come to church. He's like, maybe if you didn't come home every Sabbath acting like a fire breathing dragon, then maybe your husband would come. And we were all sitting there like, because he said, keep in mind, you're here on Sabbath, you praising God, hallelujah. But during the week, are you being loving? Are you being caring? Even though you were coming to church today on Sabbath, you knew you were saved for Pollock, but did you leave a meal at home for your husband? He's like, everyone wants to read 1 Corinthians and 13, but they forget, love is long suffering, love is patient. So remembering that is our responsibility too, to show them Christ. And so, in this instance, he may not be Adventist. But hopefully, your choice, you at least chose somebody that was a Christian before you made that vow, because that's going to be a whole.
Sometimes you may not have been,
right.
And so if you, like Sandra said, they were Christians, but then she got some further light and she went in that direction. So now they really were going in different directions in many respects. So yeah, go ahead.
So we talk about Ephesians a lot, and today I was reading and it referenced Colossians 3, and I like reading it in the Amplify because it breaks it down a little different. Well, I love the commentary it gives. It says, "Wives, be subject to your husbands out of respect for their position as protector and their accountability to God, as is proper and fitting in the Lord." The extra little insert it gave, it said, "The wife is to submit voluntarily to her husband, not to men in general, but not as inferior to him, nor in violation of her Christian ethics." So when Sandra was telling her story and she said she submitted to God, she didn't do it in violation to her Christian ethics. It said, but honoring her husband's responsibilities and authority as head of the household. And so I think she made a perfect example of how you can still do that. She was honoring God. She did not waver in her ethics to her duties to Christ in that. And because she still honored her husband, he was still the headship of her house. I believe that's why God, through the Holy Spirit, helped shift and move Tommy over to her lane. Because, we sometimes want it to be, like I tell my kids, sometimes they pray to God and we think he's a genie in a bottle. We want it overnight. But during that process, God was not just working on Tommy, he was working on Sandra too. We talked about this last week about the pruning and the refining, all that needs to go on. And so even in that submission, we're also honoring God through that. And so in today's society, it's taboo to hear it. I would say the way that I felt it was preached years ago, it was almost to make you feel inferior to your husband. But the Bible is not saying that. It's not saying to submit and be inferior to your husband. It's one, we're submitting to Christ. We're staying true to what he's called us to be as Christians, but honoring, respecting our husbands, the fact that they also have a responsibility. He has a responsibility and an authority to be the head of the household because God called him to do that. And so that's how we're submitting, and we're honoring that, respecting him, and that, and also reminding too that he's also being a protector as God has called him to be as well. So I think we can do that if we are submitting ourselves to Christ first. God will help us to be able to do that in whatever way it looks like nowadays in our home. I think God will help us to be able to do that if we so desire it, because we're not robots. He's not going to make us do it. But if I desire to be closer to Christ and I desire to study his word, and this is what he's called me to do, he will help me to be able to do that.
Ebony, we had a whole episode on this because you are the married one. So I want you to interject here too if you have something, but and then I want the husbands to talk too after the women.
I mean, I agree with what Onita said. The way that we were taught submission and what God actually intends had nothing to do with each other. And the way my husband, when we first got married, and his understanding of submission was more aligned with what we were taught. And And I bucked against that just because that's my personality. Because I'm like, I'm a whole entire full-grown woman. And, you know, what we not finna do is treat me other than that. And so there was a constant butting of heads. But a part of it was my husband not really knowing how to articulate what he wanted and needed, and me having my backup based upon what I had been taught.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what was you know, kind of bumping heads, because I believe in submission. I believe in it the way that God intends for it to be. I am 100% like, I want to be under my husband's headship. I want to be under his protection, you know, but we have to understand it from God's intention and not from the world and societal and what the church is misinforming us on. Mm-hmm. I think the church has done more damage in this area than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Raquel, thank you.
I really like what Ebony said. Because yeah, I mean, you know, it's like God first and husband first and husband second. And yeah, I don't really have much to say. Do you have something?
I guess it's kind of the same thing I said when it was just the guys. Like, I feel like there are times when like the submission is fluid. Like, I gotta submit to when Raquel sees something that I don't. I guess it's humility. Mm-hmm. You know? So, because I mean, I don't know everything. Like, you know what I mean? There are experiences and things that Raquel has that I don't have. Mm-hmm. So, but then there are things that I have prayed about. You know what I mean? Like, there are things that I just feel like a strong calling, you know, that God has placed on me, and, you know, for our family. And, you know, Raquel prays too. So like, if she gets that sense too, if she's submitting herself to God, I'm submitting myself to God, then even if she feels maybe uncomfortable about it, you know, she'll submit to that, because she knows that I'm not just pulling stuff out of a hat. Mm-hmm. If she knows that I've been in the book, if she knows that I've been in prayer, and I feel a very strong, you know, lead on something through Christ, like, yeah.
Victor, I'm gonna let you make the last comment before we end this.
So I've actually never understood why this is an important topic. Yeah, I've been at many churches and it always comes up. Mm-hmm. I think we finally had a study on it, and when they actually listed out all the things the man is supposed to do in order for the wife to submit, I said that's why it was never important to me, because I couldn't do all those things. So you know, it's weird to me. Like, I've always approached it as a partnership. So there'll be some things that Onita is great at and will lead us in, and there's some things that I'm good at and will lead us in. So I've never had in 24 years a conversation about submitting and things like that. It's just not important to me. And I think this goes back to like a theme where it should come down to the two people in the marriage, and not necessarily we're hanging out with couples and there's one couple in there where the wife is submissive and the husband is like, see, you should be more like that. That's what works for them. And what works for us is different. I think the other point I was going to say was the 50-50. Like, if that couple has sat down and agreed with it and said, every time we go out, it's going to be 50-50, and they're good with it, then why should anybody else have any opinion on them doing it? So I think it gets back to what's good.
Women aren't good with it, by the way.
Yeah. Well, they need to say that then. You know, they need to say it as far as the agreement, because don't say, okay, honey, I agree with you, and then they tell all their girlfriends, can you believe he makes me pay 50-50?
Right.
I wouldn't pay 50-50 on the first date, for real.
Yeah.
We would have that clear right up
That
front.
ain't happening. I was telling Victor one time where I know where I begin to I don't say trust more, but where I saw submission walked out was when he did get a job offer. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, God didn't tell me that. Like, we ain't supposed to be moving. And but he had been praying and he prayed it out, and so we saw it be working full circle with. He's like, I want to go up north. I want to get this amount of salary, and then we said a year. He said, and in 1 year we'll be back. I'll have that salary. We can try to match it, come back down here. And initially, I mean, it was like kicking and screaming, but ultimately, I was like, he prayed about it. God answered it. So that means this is from God. Like, I'm going. And to that point, once we went, it's like, okay, let's make the best thing out of this. I think that's in some ways of submission too. It's being good in that. It's supporting the decision, not, being resentful about it and acting out in a way and not trusting it. And it was not peaches and cream the whole time. There was some valleys experience, but I believe God sent us, if for nothing else, it was so that we could start relying solely on him and each other. I'm a big family. I know had in those years I've been closer to family, I might have been inclined to confide in some of them or share more about my marriage than I probably would have wanted to, because it just would have turned around and been a negative for us. And so we just saw God working our lives in so many ways. Sometimes going through that refining, I was like, what is happening? But I trusted that God answered his prayer. So we're going to go forth and do that. And then it all came to fruition of what the goal was, what he prayed about, and how God answered it.
So it was just 9 years later.
It was just 9 years later. Yeah, it was not. It ended up being 9 years. 9 years and 2 more kids.
Wow. Thank you all very much. This has been fantastic. I appreciate everything that you all have shared, and I'm just going to read this quote as we end here. It's from manuscript releases. It says, but when married life is what it should be, it is a representation of the life in heaven. How could there be unhappy families if all were doers of the word and not hearers only? The Lord does not require that which is impossible, but all are to live by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God, and those who do this will honor their Redeemer in their married life. The two who unite their interests in life will have distinct characteristics and individual responsibilities. Each one will have his or her work, but women are not to be valued by the amount of work they can do as our beast of burdens. The wife is to grace the family circle as a wife and companion to the wise husband. The husband should let his wife know that he appreciates her work. The question we asked is happily ever after real? And from our beliefs that when God is in it and we are doers of the word and not hearers only, that is possible. And I appreciate, and I'm just going to raise a hand to you all, because the reason that you're on here is because I've seen you all and I've watched you and I've spoken to you and I see how you move in your relationship. And that made me unafraid to have you on here to show what God can do in the lives of people who choose to follow him, work it out, sometimes thug it out. Do whatever you have to do, but at the end, have a loving, happy, godly marriage that other people can learn from. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Ben and Raquel, Victor and Onita, Sandra and Tom. We saw we lost, he's driving. Renee, Ebony, thank you all for hanging with me. And for all of you who have hung with us for our third season. This is the final episode of our third season. We are going to take a break until January 16th, we'll be back live, but there'll be episodes uploaded every Tuesday at 6:15. They won't be 3 hours long, but we told you this would be special, and it is Friday night. But we're actually going to share some of the conversations we had behind the scenes with some of these folks as well, and some other ones. And so you don't want to miss those. Those were just as good. We are not going after Wise today because we're going to bed. But God bless you. Happy Sabbath. And until next time, make choices that will help you live, love, and marry wiser. God bless you.
God bless you.
Night, all.
Night, y'all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.